Oh, there's Rick. And there's Dex.
Ready? Okay, never know. All right, good evening, everyone. The time is 5:05 p.m. It is Tuesday, July 6th. I'm going to call a special city council meeting to order. Would the city secretary please call a roll?
Mitchell.
Here.
Coach.
Here.
Ellison.
Present.
Flores-Kale.
Here.
Rizzo. Bradshaw. Here. Tobias.
Here.
All right, 6 members present. We have a quorum. Next up, citizen comments. If there's anyone in the audience who wishes to come forward and speak, we ask that you do so. Seeing none, I'm going to close citizen comments. Next up, executive session.
Pursuant to Chapter 551 Texas Government Code, the City Council reserves the right to convene into executive session from time to time as deemed necessary during this meeting. The City Council may convene into executive session pursuant to any lawful exception contained in Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code, including any or all of the following topics: pending or contemplated litigation or to seek the advice of city attorney pursuant to Section 551.071, Prairie Lakes Mud, CEDAR, bonded indebtedness, LGI sewer, possible creation of TERS, federal legislative advocacy services, city lights and Kyle Marketplace subdivision development, BB Road development agreement, transportation master plan, ordinance adopting extended hours for mixed beverages, sign code, bless you. Possible purchase, exchange, or lease or value of real estate pursuant to Section 551.072, personal matters pursuant to Section 551.074, convene into executive session pursuant to Section 551.087, Texas Government Code, to deliberate regarding the offer of economic incentives to one or more businesses, prospects of the city, that the city seeks to have locate, stay, or expand in or near the city. Project Valkyrie, Project Pacific Blue, Project Deep Golden, Project Tropical Green, Project Midnight Blue, Restaurant Incentive Program, Project Wild Blue. That's the end.
Good evening. I'm going to call this meeting back to order. There was no action taken during executive session. There will be no action taken now. Motion to adjourn. All right, we are adjourned. Wait just a second for the tapes to roll over, and then we'll call our meeting to order. No, it's on. It's just low. On the special agenda, so if there are no objections, I'm actually going to reconvene the special meeting. Hearing none, we're going to take up agenda item number 3, take action to approve a contract with the Federal Legislative Advocacy Agency. I'd like to, you don't need a motion on that. All right, so never mind. I'm going to undo all that. So our meeting is still adjourned, and we're going to call in the regular meeting. So well-oiled machine here. All right, good evening, everyone. The time is 7:06 p.m. It is Tuesday, July 6th, and I'm going to call this regularly scheduled City Council meeting to order. Would all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would the city secretary please call the roll?
Mitchell,
Here.
Coach,
Here.
Ellison,
Present.
Flores Kale,
Here.
Rizzo,
Present.
Bradshaw. Here. Tobias.
Present.
All right, 7 members present. We have a quorum. Next up, citizen comments period. At this time, we ask anyone in the audience who wishes to come forward and speak on any item to please do so. We ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes and that you direct those comments to the mayor and council. We also ask that you fill out a citizen comments form and submit that to either myself or the city secretary. I have several people who are registered to speak, so I'll call them forward one at a time. First up is Jeff Thompson.
Members. I'm Jeff Thompson, representative of Corridor Interfaith Alliance for Families, and you may remember that I helped to make a presentation for Capital Idea last month at one of your council meetings. I'd like to tell you a story this evening, and it's really kind of a parable of the babies in the river. Have you ever heard that story? It seems like there was a village along a river, and some of the residents of the village like to go and picnic beside the river, and 2 of the families of the village were doing that one summer day, and they heard a scream out in the middle of the river. It was a baby floating right in the middle of the river. So they swam out and rescued the baby. But pretty soon, there was another baby that started coming down the river, and they rescued that one also. And soon there was another, and then another, and then another. So much so that they had to run back to the village and get every villager they could find to come and help rescue the babies. And it's all they could do to keep up with the babies needing rescuing. Suddenly, one of the townspeople, one of the villagers, broke away from the group and started to run upstream. And somebody shouted to him, "We need you here to rescue the babies." And he shouted back, "I'm going upstream to find out who's throwing those babies in the river and stop them." That is the difference between charity and what Capital Idea, which I know you understand is a scholarship program at ACC, does. We try to provide not just temporary kinds of solutions to people in poverty. This is a solution that would last a lifetime. I'm going to ask you this evening, well, I know it won't happen this evening, but during your budget considerations, to not consider the Capital Idea opportunity as a charity, but as a workforce/economic development opportunity. That puts it in a whole new light. I think that instead of rescuing the babies from the river, we can stop them from being thrown in. The last comment I would like to make is that if you expect people to pull themselves up by their bootstraps, they have to have the boots. And we'd like to ask you to help do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Next, registered Diana Woods.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Diana Woods. I live at 125 Torrey Drive, Buda, Texas, and I'm here representing the Country Ridge Subdivision. I have sent a copy, and I've given a copy to the City Secretary of a petition signed by our neighborhood. I realize this may not be the particular protocol that you wish at this time, but it is to start a conversation. I'm here because I noticed on your public comment you say, I'm a City of Kyle resident, property owner, or business owner. I represent a neighborhood that is soon to be profoundly impacted by the decisions and course of this council. Firstly, we were notified that you passed a resolution that you wanted to change our zip code and city identifier to 78640. On your master plan, you have my neighborhood and my subdivision marked as a transitional settlement community. I've lived at my address for 31 years. My subdivision has been in existence for 35 years, and we're not transitional. And at this point, we feel that the City of Kyle has a desire to settle us. We're already settled. I'm here today to ask on behalf of my subdivision for two things. We ask that you release us from your extraterritorial jurisdiction. We ask that you release us unconditionally, and we've spoken with the City of Buda Planning and Zoning, the City Council, and we ask that they accept us into their ETJ. We ask for this, and I do have a copy of every resident's signature in the subdivision that makes this request. We're profoundly affected by the decisions of this council, and we do not wish to be in the ETJ. We wish to be released. I'm here to ask you that today. Many people who live in my neighborhood didn't even understand this concept. They thought we already belonged to Buda. And I explained it to them like this. We're a country rural community, and in olden days, they used to throw a net and catch rabbits in a net. I said, when the City of Kyle decided to become a home rule city before the City of Buda and began annexing, they threw a 3-mile net, and that's when we were captured. There's no reasonable means for the City of Kyle to be able to ever offer us services. We're on septic systems. Even in your own master plan, you recognize that it's very unlikely that you can provide us services. So I'm making a simple ask. I've sent an email, perhaps you didn't get it, asking that this be directed to your Planning Commission. The Planning Commission of the City of Buda is prepared to have dialogue. We wish to have dialogue. The only introduction I've had to you is a GPS satellite locator in front of my house at the end of my street. I encourage someone of this council, if you've not been there, to please visit Torrey Drive, Buda, Texas, and look at some of the impact of your decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Maxine Guilford.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Maxine Guilford. I live on 400 West 3rd Street here in Kyle. I am here concerning the master plan that's on your agenda. I'm here to ask you not to approve the plan as it is presented, where there is a road around Scott Street and coming across Sledge into a field that's across from my house on 3rd Street. We are a part of the original part of Kyle. Many of us have lived in this city all of our lives. I'm 57 years old. I've lived here for 56 years. Went to the University of Texas at Austin, moved to Houston, and hurried up and got back to Kyle. Got married and had children, and I wanted to be back where I was originally from. It was a good place to raise children. And I realize there's a lot of growth here and everything like that. But I want to tell Ms. Kale, I thank you so much. You have answered every one of my phone calls. You have answered every one of my emails. Mr. Ellison, I want to thank you for talking with me a few weeks ago. Very kind people. I do appreciate you. Mr. Barna, I think it's Leon's first name. Thank you for meeting with me and answering all of my phone calls. I want you all to know I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 names up there. I implore you all to go and take a look at what you're deciding to do. I want you to drive out there. Miss Kale came to my home, got in my driveway, and looked across the street a few feet to see where this road was going to be. We're concerned about the noise. We don't want big trucks running all through our neighborhood. If you look at Scott Street, when I met with Leon last week, a young man, I can't remember his name, but he redid the maps because the first maps that I saw were just a bunch of lines, and I could not tell what was going on. But he stayed up late and showed me the homes that were on these streets. And if you look at the road coming down Scott, it cuts off front yards right in the middle of backyards. You are tearing up our residential community by putting that kind of a road through there. Again, I understand you have growth, but we are asking you not to do that. I'm also here representing Miss Maddie Broadfoot, and also Maddie Broadfoot Welch, who is the first African American ever on this city council for the city of Kyle. I want to thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next up, Mr. Peter Parcher.
Good evening. My name is Peter Parcher. I live in Steeplechase, for the record. This evening, I know y'all are used to me coming up here and haranguing you, but this evening I'm actually here to say thank you. Number one, to the council members that have worked with me on getting the Veterans Parade going. The announcement was made. I'm very happy with that, and so are lots of other veterans. I'd also like to thank the Parks Department, Mariana, for allowing us to work with them on the weekend at the fireworks. I think I saw you there, Mr. Mayor. It was a very good, unique situation. We learned a lot, and I met a lot of great people. Basically, that's what I wanted to say, and thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Next up, Kay Rush.
My name is Kay Rush, and I'm a resident of Amberwood. And I want to ask the City Council to please work with Hayes County. The raise in our property values, this year alone, they raised it $20,000. I happen to be retired. We're on fixed income. We get some benefits through the taxing, but with them raising it $20,000 just on the property value, you're getting to the point to where you're starting to push the retired people. And we're probably the best citizens you have. We use the goods and services in the town. Very seldom are you called to our parties. Very seldom do you catch us speeding through town. So I would ask you to look at it. Travis and Williamson counties both took their homestead exemptions up to $90,000. Hayes County is still only at $30,000, and with the increase of what they're selling the houses for. Most senior citizens try to stay in their houses. We do not want to go to assisted living, so we're trying to just maintain within our houses. The other question I have for you is we have a large warehouse district that is being built in the Plum Creek area. We put a nice Plum Creek sign up, and it's nicely landscaped, it's nicely done. But if you look at it, the trucks are already starting to drive into it. I would ask that the engineering on your roads and your curbing be opened up so that you have enough room for these very large trucks to make the turns and quit breaking down the curbing. And if you look at the construction that you're putting on from HEB all the way to Home Depot, you'll notice you're putting center curbings in again. And if you look at the one that's around Evo, you'll notice that that thing has been broken for a long time. So you're putting in curbing that is for an F-150 and a Prius. You're not putting in curbing. I would also ask you, as you build out, are you putting in road base that goes for the heavy trucks? And I don't think you are, because the roads are breaking down. And I've lived in this city for 15 years. So I would ask you to as you go through your processes, think about your roads and think about what you need to put as your road base. Because road base for a regular car is one thing, road base for the trucks is another. And we know we have a large concrete plant. We are always going to have gravel, concrete flowing on ours. Okay.
All right, thank you, Ms. Rush.
Yeah. Yeah, I just wanted, the fireworks are horrible coming out of Indian Paintbrush. 3 hours of it last night, and nobody does anything about it.
Thank you. That's all the citizen comments forms that I have. Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to come forward and speak on any item? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close citizen comments period. It is now closed. Next up, approval of the minutes.
Mayor, I make a motion to approve the minutes from June 15th, special and regular, and then special June 26th.
Second.
All right, it's been motioned by Councilmember Ellison, seconded by Councilmember Rizzo, that we approve the minutes for June 15th, regular and special, and June 16th, regular. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0. Next up is City Manager's report.
Mayor, before I pull up the presentation, can we jump to the Parks and Rec month?
Sure. Yeah, we'll push that back one item, and we'll skip to a presentation, Parks and Recreation Month Proclamation. Councilmember Bradshaw.
I am so excited and honored to just share a little bit about our Parks and Rec department and it being Parks and Rec Month. I think this is perfect timing. We're coming off the heels of the 4th of July city fireworks. And that event in and of itself just goes to show that your department is resilient. No matter how hard things get, everybody is always hands on deck. Everybody does what they can, they pitch in, and they get the job done. So y'all were amazing on the 4th of July. Thank you so much for that. And with that said, I'm going to just go ahead and read the proclamation. Okay. Whereas Parks and Recreation programs are an integral part of communities throughout this country, including Kyle, Texas, and whereas our parks and recreation are vitally important to establishing and maintaining the quality of life in our communities, ensuring the health of all citizens, and contributing to the well-being of a community and region. And whereas parks and recreation areas are fundamental to the environmental well-being of our community and ensure the ecological beauty of our community, and whereas parks and natural recreation areas improve the quality of the air we breathe and provide a place for children and adults to connect with the nature and recreate outdoors, and whereas parks and recreation programs build healthy, active communities that aid in the prevention of chronic disease and also improve the mental health and emotional health of all citizens, and whereas the Kyle Parks and Recreation Department maintains 542 acres of dedicated parkland, coordinates and implements 32 special events a year, and programs youth and adult programs, athletics, aquatic programs, and outdoor exploration. And whereas the U.S. House of Representatives has designated July as Parks and Recreation Month, and whereas Kyle, Texas recognizes the benefits derived from parks and recreation resources. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Kyle City Council that July is recognized as Park and Recreation Month. Oh, and with that said, I would like to call Mariana up for just a moment to recognize one of our Parks and Rec employees.
Mayor and Council, Mariana Espinosa, Parks and Recreation Director for the record. Thank you, Councilmember Bradshaw, for our annual Parks and Recreation Month proclamation that is celebrated throughout the country. The theme for the National Recreation and Park Association's Park and Recreation Month is our Park and Recreation story. And as you know, here in Kyle, the Parks and Recreation Department has a wonderful story. And we would like to take this month and this opportunity to really share our story and to express how we continue to strive to continue to provide programs, events, and services that continue to improve the quality of life for the Kyle residents and citizens. And one of the main people who have been here for the story will be completing 25 years of service with the city of Kyle in exactly 1 month from today. So we briefly just wanted to recognize Arthur Zamaripa, who will be completing 25 years on August 6th. His story started out with when he was just a member of the Public Works team, and they did sewer, they did everything, code enforcement. He said he used to do it all, and that he would beg and beg and beg because he did not want to be cleaning sewers anymore, and so he wanted a Parks and Recreation department. So at this time, I'd like to call up Art Zamaripa if you'd like to share a few words. And I would like to recognize our Park Board Chair, Amanda Stark, who's with us tonight. Her invaluable support along with all of our Park Board members. Of course, our Chief of Staff, Jerry Hendricks, who continues to provide support to our entire department, and our incredible staff that were able to be here tonight. Now, everyone was able to be here extremely tired from this weekend, but it is a privilege and an honor to work with the team behind in blue. So thank you all for coming. Art, come on up.
Well, I don't know where to start. 25 years ago, I left Austin to come to work for y'all. And I appreciate it. I want to thank God for giving me the opportunity to do what I like to do. A lot of things have changed in those 25 years. I've seen it grow. And I used to look forward to cleanup days because that's where I used to get my mowers, my parts, and I used to get all the stuff that I needed to do, the parts. I like the new stuff that we're getting now, and I appreciate y'all for giving us that and giving us all the equipment that we need to do our parks. I always wanted to be with parks from day one. There was no parks when I started. So Jimmy Herberta, Booth Montague would always tell me, stick around. We're gonna get you a part. And that was Great Clark. But I couldn't. I kept on saying I'm gonna quit because I didn't like sewer. And they would look like they would put me at the sewer plant all the time. But I did it just to prove to everybody that I wanted to be with parks. 25 years later, I'm here. And I want to thank y'all. I want to thank my family. I want to thank Lupe for listening to all the stuff that I come back home with. But first of all, I want to thank, last but not least, I'd like to thank myself for getting up, pushing myself out of bed. And being out there. Thank y'all very much for y'all's time.
Thanks, Art. Wow.
Thank you. 25.
Sir, thank you for all your hard work and dedication to the city. It's very appreciated. I've seen you through the years in your truck, driving around and helping out. And I wave hi to you, you wave back, and what you're doing to the community. I really appreciate it. And the entire residents recognize you. We appreciate your service to the city. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Councilmember Ellison.
I call him DJ because he's always DJing all the events. He comes in, works double dipping duty from Parks and Rec, but he also he moonlights as a DJ, and he's a pretty darn good one as well. So I'm really excited about today and being able to recognize Art and hearing his story. I had not heard about that, but man, go ahead and give yourself your praise and your kudos, because it does take you getting up out of bed, and particularly when you're doing something that maybe is not your favorite job, but you were doing it for this community, for your family, and for others. So that major props to you, man. Much respect for you, and just in totality, the Parks and Rec department. I tell you, it's a great group. Many of us have probably seen the show Parks and Rec. It's one of my favorite ones. And it's very entertaining, but I think we have a just as entertaining and fun and loving group that just cares about its city, cares about its parks, cares about the quality of life for its citizens. Whether they live here in this city or not, you wouldn't be able to tell. They come to work and they treat the parks and their approach to the job as if it's their own backyard. And that means a lot. And I can see it every time. And a lot of respect for Mariana since she had come on board at the end of 2019, being tasked with the downtown square of the holiday lighting, and this team has rolled with that and taken that full steam ahead and exceeded expectations every year, as they do with every project that they're a part of, from the opening of our dog park over there to the various different parks that have happened and other green spaces and open spaces in our city. So major props to you all. Can't say thank you enough. Love this Parks and Rec department. Keep up the great work. Thank you, Councilmember Bradshaw, for bringing this forward. I'm not sure if this is your first proclamation and presentation, but congratulations on that. And thank you to an amazing Parks and Rec team. You all are fantastic.
Councilman Rizzo.
Hey, Art, I just want to say thank you. You know, my boys, my kids grew up on those fields there. Always were cut, always ready to go when we were out there practicing. I coached there a lot of years, and it was great. We had Pee-wee football teams there. We had softball teams. We had baseball teams. We all practiced there. You were there late, turning on the lights, late at night, turning them off, I just want to thank you for all you've done for the kids of this community, because those are the ones that benefit. They're the ones that grew up to be great young men and individuals. But yeah, just thank you for all you do. But also, I just want to thank you for giving us 25 years. I know that's a commitment. You don't hear of people sticking around that long anymore. For you to be able to do that and love your job, and it's a commitment you gave to the city. So thank you. And I also want to thank everyone in Parks and Rec. Early on, people don't know that at the start of the pandemic, you were out there helping out, putting sanitation stations out, helping blockade the parks, doing everything you could, because there was so much uncertainty, and you put your health aside and your well-being to come out and help and help people. So I just want to thank y'all for being the people you are. Thank you for the individualism and for all that you do for our city. Thank you.
Councilmember Flores-Kell.
I just want to say thank you to Art. Thank you. Sticking around 25 years is hard enough on its own without feeling like you're dreading working in the public works. Not that public works isn't amazing, but when you're doing a job that doesn't fulfill you, it takes a lot to get up in the morning, and it takes a lot to come to work every day. So I love the fact that you thank yourself, because I think in life, we don't do enough of that. And so thank you for sticking around for 25 years. And to my Parks and Recs team, can't nobody say anything bad about you. I got your backs from now until forever. I know what you went through this weekend with the pool and the fireworks and the whole situation, and never will I let someone badmouth you. You're my team, and I know what you went through, and I was there listening to every bit of it. Poor Mayor Mitchell. I thought I was going to have to pick up off the floor, because he thought, not again. And I said, Travis, you know what? We're late, but by the end, we're all going to be excited. It's going to be a great show. And we're going to forget that it was 40 minutes late. And he just laughed. So I can't even say enough. And so right away, I wanted to let Mariana know as well, because she got the brood end of it, as did the rest of Kyle, that we stand as a team. We are Kyle Strong, and that's why we have people that have been here for 25 years. So I love each and every one of you guys from the bottom of my heart. Thank you.
Yeah, I thought about the Parks and Rec a couple times this weekend. Yeah. How about photograph? You want to bring up the department? We'll all come down.
We'll take a picture, another picture.
So we're going to do a panorama. I'm going to say go, and y'all are going to stay still. Ready? 1, 2, 3, still. I like how everyone says quiet, too. It's not listening. All right, one more. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Thank you much. Y'all want to get in?
You ready now, Scott? All right, we're going to go to City Manager's report.
Mayor Council Scott Sellers, for the record, City Manager. A little out of protocol, but I wanted to echo all of your comments about our Parks Department. They are incredible, from Jerry as Assistant City Manager, Mariana as Director, each of the Parks staff, phenomenal job. So they are definitely family. City Manager report. All right. If you recall, we had a conversation about the senior center during the second budget workshop. I'm sure a few of you have forgotten about that. The seniors had made some requests to the council about looking for funding, et cetera, for a future center, and we had given them some options. I think we're to the point where we need a little bit more of a direct influence and conversation with Kyle Area Senior Zone. And with that, I wanted to know if the council would like to form a city council task force that will interface with them more frequently as we start targeting some funds and refining plans.
Yes. Me.
I'd like to nominate Councilmember Tobias to be a part of that task force. And Councilmember Ellison as well.
Yeah. Wife does that a lot. Volunteers. Sure, yes, be glad to.
Councilor Ellison, you were brought up.
I'd be happy to.
Okay. Well, we have the 3, so I mean, I think that's probably fine. I had some interest in this as well, but I can help in other ways besides just what's on the task force. So, does that work for everyone?
So who would it be? Myself, Allison, and who else? Kel.
Okay.
Sure, Bill.
Great, thank you. So we'll start by looking at some of their plans and see if we can help with some funding opportunities as well. As was just mentioned, James Adkins Public Pool is open. I want to thank specifically the aquatic staff for getting the pool up and running. A lot of the community does not know this, but we were set to open Saturday, and one of our pumps suffered a pretty serious failure. And they were out there babying it along, making sure everything got up and running, got the chemicals up and running. In fact, over the summer, the reason we've opened late is because we had some pretty significant fixes to make to the pool, and our staff has been out there overseeing the process from beginning to end, also helping to get our lifeguards hired and keep them motivated during this time. I know one of our aquatics employees actually spent basically the entire night out there making sure the pool got filled up properly. So that's the dedication of Team Kyle, and the public needs to be aware of that. Very impressive. So the pool is open, and it's in our Greg Clark Park. You'll see on the slide the swim times and ages and the rates. All right, next we have Verde, which is formerly known as Uptown or Central Park. And this is, you see the image on the screen there. It's ultimately a very targeted mixed-use, vertical mixed-use development. And I don't know if the Google satellite has flown over recently, but they've gone out, they've broken ground. A couple of those buildings are already starting to go vertical, which is great. We like to invite the public to go and see the progress. And so we have basically a groundbreaking event and street fair planned for July 15th. So this is coming up in just a week, next Thursday.
Do we get an update on the paving? Because I think it's still not paved. Do we know? I think maybe Samantha might have, might have an update on that. Just nod if the answer is yes, it's going to be done.
So we are planning for the event to be on Doherty because the paving won't be done until after this event.
Okay. All right.
So there's the intersection of Doherty and Burnham. So please come for food, activities, and more. It should be really exciting. We're very, very excited about this project, just like we were recently with the groundbreaking of Harris Memorial Park. More information at cityofkyle.com/laverde. Next, the Curative folks are still out at the Hayes Performing Arts Center doing free testing. They are adding to the tests, the flu and RSV to the panel. So for the public that would like to get out there and get their tests taken, get on cityofkyle.com/COVID and register there. It's that time again. I'm sure several council members here are very interested in this, at least two that I know of. The last day to register to vote from the citizenry is October 4th, and you'll see early voting coming up into that November 2021 election season. So more information on how to get registered and be eligible to vote is on cityofkyle.com/election. Also, the window to file is coming up shortly as well. And finally, the last slide, I wanted to make sure we got all the other stuff done before this. So I think everyone in Kyle is aware of what happened Sunday night with our Independence Day fireworks show. We did ask the vendor from American Fireworks to come and be represented. So I'd like to ask Mariana maybe to step up to the podium and introduce him and have that dialogue.
Mariana Espinosa, Parks and Recreation Director. Joining us this evening, we have Steve Coach Davis with the American Fireworks Company. He is the Director of Pyrotechs. Mr. Davis, could you please come up?
Mayor Mitchell, City Council, ladies and gentlemen of the audience, I'm here tonight to not make excuses, to tell the truth exactly what happened. Number one, and make an apology to the community of Kyle. This is not how we built our business. our owner lives in the community. And as we go through the question and answers and everything, I'll explain exactly how the events unfolded for July 4th. But we're here tonight, I'm here tonight to try to make things as right as I can. What led up to the 4th of July, we've had, number one, trying to get our shows out on 4th of July. We had weather problems. I know we were lucky we didn't have rain here in Kyle, but in Del Valley and Creedmoor, where we have our magazine where we keep our product, it rained very hard. So I had a total of 11 shows to get out still on the 4th of July. So the rain slowed us up on that part. The other part was the labor issue. We've had problems since everyone coming back from the COVID situation, hiring enough pyrotechnicians. We had enough to do the shows, but what happened is we worked our crews hard. We had over 25 shows in 2 days. 3 of the crew members that I had from our company said they couldn't go anymore. They were exhausted. And then there was another company that we do joint ventures with. They did the Buda show. We helped them, matter of fact, getting the trailers over to Buda because they needed our help. Months ago, they said they would provide us help to help build help us and our company build the show with them, because we do joint ventures with them, all the time, all over Texas. They called and said that some of their workers didn't show up at the Buda show, so they were short. The weather in New Braunfels, it rained, it delayed them, so they weren't able to send their crew. So when we arrived, Mariana came up to me and I told her, Mariana, I have a problem with staffing. I don't have enough to build the show. I said, we're going to try to build as much as we can, but I don't know if we can build it all. And that's what unfolded on the 4th of July. I take full responsibility for it. Mariana and the Parks and Rec staff were wonderful. Benito, Stacy, Amy Garcia. Amy Garcia had her group of young kids that were helping me fill up the sand buckets for the big tubes for the big shells we were going to shoot. Everyone was pitching in, helping. I got finally 2 more crew members from our warehouse to come. We tried to put as much together as we could for the show, and we fell short. And I'm here tonight to do whatever we can to make this right. I'm embarrassed. I have a lot of interest in Kyle. Me and Elsa Hinojosa opened up Lehman back in 2004. I was AD head football coach there for 8 years. Have a lot of friends here. My wife has family here. So I feel extremely bad for what happened. And I'm here tonight just to try to make things right, whether it's to put on another show for y'all, whatever the council decides. I know I've learned that I'm not going to trust people telling me something anymore. I know that. I'm going to take responsibility and have enough crew at my sites, no matter what it takes, where that doesn't happen again. It's a shame that, I'm really big on integrity in your word, so that might be a fault I have. But I did trust the company to come through after everything we did for them. So there's no one to blame but me. I'm here to take that responsibility. I understand the community is upset. Like I told those workers that didn't want to come, they were tired. I said, this is like the Super Bowl. You don't get a replay the next day. It's next year when it happens again. So I'm disappointed in that aspect, along with trusting someone to do what they promised they would do for us. So it's up to y'all, what y'all decide what you'd like to do. We're willing to put on another show at that exactly the same type of show we promised for 4th of July. At another date, if you want to do that. We don't expect any kind of compensation for the show that we put on. I tried to do something, the company that I was trying to get them to get a crew over here, they said, well, just tell them you can't do the show. And I said, I can't do that. I said, these people are here to see a show. We're going to try and put as much as we can together for the show. And that's what y'all saw, Sunday night. And again, that's way below our standards. And I apologize. Our shows, we take pride in them. We built our business on that, and most of our business is by referrals. So I'm extremely, number one, embarrassed about it. That's not what we're about. That's not the quality that we, provide. And I'm just here to try to make it right with the city of Kyle. So.
Does anybody have any questions for Coach Davis? I have a few, but did you say yes?
Thanks, first. You got a second?
Councilor Ellison.
Thank you. Mr. Davis, first of all, thank you for being here today and the sincerity in which you speak. And the integrity in which you wish to have in the communities that you serve. We understand how important that is. And I think you've already been given a heads up that obviously disappointment is putting it mildly from yesterday or from Sunday. Certainly we had about a mixed bag of responses, and particularly on social media from our community. Half were pretty upset, mostly directed at the city. And then the other half were grateful for an opportunity to get out and enjoy time with their family, regardless of what might have happened, and certainly appreciate those residents being understanding. I'll get into my first initial line of questioning. I'm sure my colleagues will have some questions as well. So we'll entertain listening to their questions before I come to my decision on what I think I'll suggest to the group we do. First of all, have you been able to read the incident report put together by the city?
No, I have not. I have not seen that.
Okay. I would particularly, I don't know if you'll have an opportunity to review it, particularly the timestamp of events from 8:30 a.m. until the conclusion pretty much of that day, and then into yesterday as well. I'd like to get your feedback on the accuracy of that, because one thing I want to really step aside for a moment and say, I read through the entire memo and incident report that was provided by our staff. Extremely thorough. I cannot thank Mariana, whomever else worked on putting this memo together in this incident report. This is as thorough as you can get. I appreciated the detail. I appreciate the commitment and the timestamps and the names of who all was involved, the discussion that was that occurred. I cannot overstate my gratitude for our city staff and what they tried to pull together and help a circumstance that was beyond their control. I looked through that entire incident report. I looked through that entire incident report, through the entire memo, and my immediate reaction to this is, where can I find where we dropped the ball? Where can I find where the city could have done better? Where can I find where there was an opportunity? And I'm hard pressed to find one. I'll be honest. I cannot find a way, shape, or form where our staff could have performed better. I cannot express my gratitude for our staff pulling together as a team, knew the expectations of this show. We have a gold standard here in Kyle that we try to live up to, and our team works themselves to the bone to do that. And I just want to take a moment and share with Mariana, your Parks and Rec team, any other staff that was a part of trying to make this show live up to the expectations that we have. I cannot thank you enough, and I'm sure I speak for the council, and I'm sure they're going to say it as well, that we are in great indebted and gratitude to you and what you've done. So I want to make that very clear. Thank you, Mariana. Please, anyone that's not here in attendance tonight, please make sure that they understand that. So I'm going to go off the memo and the incident report as if it were agreed upon. I know you said you hadn't had a chance to review it. I'd still like you to take that time to review it. But in particular, it sounds like it was just a number of different circumstances that happened. Obviously, you said the labor shortage happened. Obviously, the rain and weather, all kinds of things that I know other events had to deal with as well. You even pointed that out yourself, everybody has to deal with the rain and the weather. And you said as well that there were other events that had short staff as well. And there were some opportunities for you to learn. And I certainly appreciate you sharing that with us, Mr. Davis. Two things I'd just like to confirm publicly. So one, there has not been a transfer of payment of even the half of the $45,000 that was for the show paid to American Fireworks, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So essentially there would be, at this point, as it stands, no money to give back to the city. You have not been paid for that event on Sunday. Second question, this is for staff, Mr. Davis, perhaps our finance director. So last year, I want to say this. We did use your services, American Fireworks, in the year 2020, correct, Mr. Davis?
Yes, sir. And the show we had planned was, we had a very special show planned. Yes, sir, we sure did. For
Yes,
this
sir.
year.
Yeah, and in 2020, I just want to, for the record as well, say that was the first time we contracted with you was in 2020. And from my accounts, that was a great show. It was particularly a great show because it came at a time where we were in the middle of a pandemic and there weren't very many activities that people could come together on and do as a community. And that 4th of July event that you all did for us last year was a huge morale boost to our community and a great bringing together of our community. And so I want to thank you all for being a part of that. And everything that you all showed last year was clear that you were a quality vendor, you were a vendor of integrity, and you came and did what you were supposed to do last year. So there was no reason to think that anything would be any different coming into this year.
Yes, sir.
I just want to state that and make that clear. I know a lot of folks might forget 2020 for obvious reasons, but that did happen and that was a special show. It was 2 years ago that we had a completely different vendor in 2019 where we had the explosion. Everybody knows about that. That is a completely different vendor than your company from last year and this year. I just want to make that clear for the public record as well. So the question I was about to bring up to staff was in 2019, when we had the issue with the fireworks that exploded, the contract wasn't going to be met because it was going to be a show that was less than agreed upon in the contract. That vendor also fell on their sword with that event. Staff, could you refresh our memories? Was that show refunded in full or was that a partial refund? Because I know they also offered a show, what they called a golden ticket, a show at no cost whenever we wanted it. But we declined that and we accepted a refund. And could you refresh my memory if that was a 100% refund or a partial refund?
Council member, this is Pervez Mohit, City's Director of Finance for the record. If my memory serves me correctly, we were reimbursed, I believe, $30,000. But I'll have to check and confirm that for you.
Okay, and I can wait because I know my colleagues will have some questions as well. I'll yield the floor.
I
at
can
this
answer
time.
that.
Thank you.
Excuse me. It was a 75% reimbursement of $22,500.
Anyone else have questions? Councilman Rizzo.
Davis, yeah, just for the record. So when I'm looking at the notes, it says that Mariana arrived at the location at 4:45 PM. It's when you informed her that you weren't going to have staff there available. How long does it take your staff to put something together like that? It's 4:45 right now. What time would they have arrived and what time would they have had it completed by?
I believe we arrived right at 4 o'clock and started. With the staff that I was expecting, we'd have been ready to go by 9 o'clock. We did arrive a little later than I wanted because of the issues with the rain back in Garfield with the product. But the staffing we had for the show, that would have been enough time to get everything prepared.
So we'd say about 4.5 hours to prepare for the show. This is staff that's worked together for a while, that knows what they're doing. Everybody knows their job.
Yes, sir, because everyone is trained. They know what to do.
Yeah.
We all have our assignments, and you know, we're all working together building the show. So,
And where I'm getting with this, I'm not trying to blame anyone. I think at that time, I think we should have made the call, because now we're putting together a staff that doesn't know how to do this, and expecting them to get it done in that same 4.5 hours. I think at that time, we could have made the credible judgment that we weren't going to be ready for 9 o'clock, and we should have canceled, maybe giving the families an opportunity to go elsewhere to maybe do that. When I'm looking at this, I think that's the thing that really sticks out to me, is the time. Because you're looking at a staff that is credible, that has put a lot of these shows together, and now they're not there. And you don't have that staff, and we're asking people that have never done this before to do that and to help out in ways, and you're having to take time out of your schedule to show people how to do certain jobs. And that, it's just, I just didn't see it being done in that time manner. I would have probably, for me, I think I would have been better off, I would have felt better if I would have had an opportunity to tell these citizens that, hey, I'm sorry, due to technical difficulties, we cannot put on a show tonight, and it would have given them the opportunity to go elsewhere at that time, because you're looking at 4:45, they've got hours to go look at a different show, and that's not what I want. I'd love for them to see a show in the city of Kyle,
Yes.
but when I see families up and down the roadways and lined up and spending time, that's awesome that they're together, but they're expecting a show, and I think we failed them in that part, that we didn't make that crucial call. I think we should have stepped up and said, you know what, we just can't do it. When you try to piece something together, it doesn't always end well. And I think that's what we tried to do, is piece something together. I think we should have called it at 4:45 and gone from there. But with that being said, I also want people to know that last year, we had a hard time getting vendors to come out to want to do a show for us during the pandemic. And the citizens of our city were in the middle of a pandemic, have been secluded, had no real interaction outside their homes. And we were able to provide a show that was safe, and you came out and helped us with that when no other vendor would. And I want to thank you for that, because they gave the citizens of our city a little something back, you know, just a little happiness after being locked in their homes for so long. So that was a blessing there. But I think that for me, it showed that you can put on a great show. I think you would have done a great job if your staff would have been there. Unfortunately, I think you might have taken on more than you could as a company, and I would implore you to make sure that next year, moving into other events, that you don't overextend yourself, because that's easy to do sometimes, and it may be a good learning lesson for us.
Mr. Rizzo, I agree with you. It was a learning experience for me, because I've been doing this 9 years since I retired from coaching, and this is the first time this has ever happened to me. So I wasn't sure I was still counting on maybe some more people coming from our warehouse to help. And I got 2, but I was torn whether to cancel or to try to build as much as I could of the show for the citizens, knowing they all had come out to see the show. As far as taking on too much, I don't believe we took on too much. I think my fault was trusting someone that was going to have a crew there to help me after we provided services for them to help them on their shows.
You're talking about the Butte Fireworks show, right?
Yes, sir.
Just to be clear.
So I did learn that I will have my home staff together and will never rely on someone else again to help us on those situations like that.
And for me, I guess I'm a little torn because, you know, you came for us, you were there for us in 2020. And when a lot of other companies told us no. And for me, I guess I'm a little torn because I know what kind of show you can put on. Moving forward, what promises do I have that your company is, if we decide to continue using y'all services for our fireworks show, what guarantees do our communities have that you're going to perform the best show that you can, and that you're going to take the citizens of Kyle's, you know, time and be respectful with it?
Well, before you answer that, can I ask him a couple questions? Because I
Sure.
think that's the kind of where the nut is
Okay.
as well.
Let's go ahead and do that.
So you said something early on. You said over the course of the 2-day weekend, you had over, I think you said 25 shows
Yes, sir.
that you were managing or were over, and then on the July 4th day, on Sunday, you had 11 shows. So out of those 25 shows, how many of them did not go off as on time and with the full contract amount of, you know, pyrotechnics?
Everyone went off exceptionally well. I got letters of, you know, that they enjoyed the show. It was great. I did have on one show, had some of the finale chains that didn't go off, that didn't fire. It was a bad E-match, which ties it into the electronic system to fire. So there was about 10 finale chains that didn't go off, but other than that, all the shows went off.
So on July 4th, there were I guess 11 different setups that you were over, and 10 of them were set up to 100% of what was contracted, and Kyle was the only one that was not able to get the setup, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so from a budgetary standpoint, where did our contract rank in terms of value, total dollar amounts over those, let's say just the 11 for that day? Were we on the low end, or were we on the high end, or were we just kind of right in the middle?
Y'all were on the high end, yes, sir.
So why did Kyle, how is it that Kyle came to be, it seemed like last, with all of staff, your crew being exhausted, when it seems like we were one of the biggest shows?
Yes, sir. I promise y'all were not put on the bottom.
You see how it feels that way, though, right?
I know it feels that way. The results probably look that way, but I promise you that wasn't the thought process at all on it. My deal was that Kyle was the closest one we had left, so my deal was to try to get the other ones out. I had the help supposedly from that other company was going to help me with the shooters, and then I had the 3 employees of mine at the company didn't leave, so I felt comfortable with what our staff was going to be there to finish the show and perform just like we did last year. So I know it probably feels that way, that okay, we're the only ones that didn't have the show go to expectations, but I promise you, in the thought process and the planning, y'all were up there just like everyone else. I did not have Kyle on a lower level. Believe me, I live close by. I have ties here after working here so many years. I definitely wanted this show to be a premier show, and I was excited about it. Planning it with Mariano, with the marquee of Kyle going off 3 times, spelling out Kyle, the big shells. I mean, I've planned this show for, more than a year. Well, at least right after the other show, planning this show for this year. So I was excited about shooting it. It was a big show, but there's no doubt we could have handled that.
Well, one of the things we always like to do, as much as we can, we're not always able to do this, but we like to get local vendors and have local contracts because we feel like it helps us with that relationship. The folks are from here. There's a sort of a proximity benefit, so there's some efficiencies that can be created there. I don't think we were counting on was taking that proximity and essentially putting it to the back of the list so that you could sort of start at the far out, work through this Super Bowl weekend, and sort of get to the city of Kyle later. So to Councilmember Rizzo's question, if we were to try to, potentially continue forward with you on a future shows, would you be willing to set up in the contract that, we take priority setup, not just in terms of, the value, since obviously, we were one of the, if not the largest contract you had, we'd like to be set up first to make sure that and far in advance of like trying to get that last shell in right before 9 o'clock or whatever. Is that something you think that you would be able to work out with us moving forward?
There's no doubt. If we're lucky enough to be able to do a show for Kyle again, I will have our best pyrotechs crew together for this show. And if I knew things were going to play out like they did with this other company, I would have done that. They have some good pyrotechnicians in the crew that was supposed to meet me there with my crew. There's no doubt we could have done that. We've done shows before together. So it wasn't too high of expectation for us to get that show ready if they would have held their end of the bargain up. It's my fault for trusting them. I will not do that again. I will have our pyrotechnician crews here that are the best and get the show ready.
Can we make sure we figure out whatever the name, you don't have to say it now, is of the company that did the Buda show so that we can have it for whenever we do our procurement processes to make sure that that's taken into account if we ever move forward? Those are all the questions I have. We do still need to make a decision about whether or not we move forward on the golden ticket idea. Councilmember Florescale.
Yeah, I do have just a quick question. And first of all, I want to say, worse than being in our shoes as council or as residents, my heart really went out to you because I can't even imagine how you felt showing up, knowing that you're not going to have workers there. So for that, I don't know. I can't apologize enough for you because I know that was a big pill to swallow. I guess I have 2 questions before I have comment. So did I hear you correct when you said that there would be no compensation for this show that you guys did?
Correct.
Okay, for the next show, if that was a possibility, would it be the same price or what would that look like?
Yes, ma'am. If y'all decided to use this for a show in the future, whether it was one coming up in July or one in the future, we would put on the same show for the same price. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I don't feel what you did was intentional, and I don't feel like we should beat a dead horse. I've read and read and read, and I've tried to find out as much information as possible, and I see that you're very apologetic, which I want to say thank you for. I'm big on grace, and I think as a community and as a dais and as people in general, that it's important to not only give grace, but to get grace. And so I would not be opposed to another show and giving you guys an opportunity to make up for it. I'm with half of the city of Kyle residents that said, they were just grateful to see what they saw. And I don't think it would be as big as a pill to swallow for our mayor if he hadn't already lived through this once, and Ellison, and I think Rizzo. I can't remember everybody that was on here. So for them, it was just like a nightmare relived. But
and I'm sorry to open that wound up again.
And you know what? Sorry has been said, and I think that's okay. And I think it's you just hold your head up and you move forward, and we try to make the best out of the situation. I think that's what we can do to be progressive and to be good people. So I would like to see another show on Veterans Day.
Well, I would say there's a big difference between 2019 and 2021. And
Right.
the difference is, in the aftermath of what happened, our Parks Director and yourself, very, very straightforward about exactly what the situation was and helped me gain in confidence that at least I understood what actually was transpiring. That wasn't what took place in 2019. So that was we very quickly learned, over time that, it's exactly as you said. And so that meant a lot to me. And then also just thinking about from the standpoint of, like, if something goes wrong, is it a situation, you have different levers that you can pull. It's like, get out of town, we don't ever want to see you again. Or is it a situation where we can understand what led to the problem and we can set it up in the contract and in other ways to make sure it doesn't happen again? Do we think that the vendor is motivated to make sure that it doesn't happen again? And, so my response to this one's different than my response to 2 years ago. And it's really not about what led to the event. It's about what happened afterwards and the communication we received. And that built a lot of confidence in me, in you, and in our Parks Department. So I'm in agreement. I don't know about the day, but I'm in agreement with the idea of trying to come up with a really good day to show the city what we did have planned. I really want to see that show because I was looking forward to it as well.
And not as bad as I wanted to shoot it. I was very excited about it.
I know you were. And
for the residents too. I really wanted them to coaching at Lehman. I know the rivalry between Buda and Lehman. And that's what really ticks me off is we helped them get the trailers there for their Buda show.
Yeah, I'm glad that ticks you off.
Very much so. So the people of Kyle, when I was coaching, were very gracious. I know they can be hard on you at times, but they're always very supportive and forgiving of things. And, I love being able to go in their homes and meet their families. And Kyle has a special place in my heart. And the last thing I wanted to do is to disappoint, and which I did. And I only can offer a chance to make it up and go forward and give y'all the best show y'all have ever had. That's all I can offer. The decision's up to y'all. But the commitment with me is sincere and real. And I can only ask a chance to prove it. That's all I can do.
Okay. Any other comments?
I just wanted to say, just make it real quick, that yes, there were people out there that were very disappointed, sir.
I understand.
And I thank you for coming up here and taking that accountability. But we are a forgiving city, and I know that the next one, whatever it is, will be great. And so I'm just ready to move forward from this and go from there. But thank you for being here, sir, and explaining what really happened that night.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any thoughts about what's been? Yeah, go ahead, Councilman.
Interrupted.
Sorry.
So Scott, just for the record, there was no deposit paid or, all right, because that's what's going around right now, that we gave a $22,000 deposit, but I want to make it clear for the citizens.
Right.
Not for Councilman
It was
Kell.
in the contract.
I wanted
That's why everybody
clear
thought
for
that.
the citizens that we didn't pay that and that no monies have been paid yet,
Yes.
as of yet.
And
So that's
I
good.
wasn't worried about that. Mariana has been great to work with, very communicating with me. And she said, well, I'll just have the check at the show. I said, hey, that's no problem. I'm not worried about it. When she came up and she had the check, I said, no, I think you better hold on to that right now. So,
I appreciate that.
Yes.
We are getting beat up pretty bad.
I know you are, and I'm sorry
Yeah.
for the heat y'all are having to take on it. You shouldn't have to take any repercussions from that. The Park and Rec, Mariana and her staff shouldn't. They were wonderful. You're right. They are wonderful. I've never seen anybody in a Park and Rec situation ever chip in on anything like that. So I was amazed on that. I will tell you that I have learned from this experience. You think you know a lot, but every now and then you find something that you didn't know about. And I learned a great deal that won't happen again for me, I promise. But I would just like to commit what they did. I mean, all of them were working so hard to help to try to put on something in the air.
I agree. And can I also state that according to the memo, they left at 12 a.m. and then Monday they were back to clean up at 6:30. So that's our staff, not even getting probably 4 hours of sleep. So if anybody has a problem with our Parks and Rec department, my email is ykel@cityofkyle.com. Feel free to reach out to me and I will set up a face-to-face meeting.
Well,
Thank you.
and that's like today, we went and finished picking up all the equipment there at the golf course. They were there helping us get the sand out of the barrels and put it back in the trailer to take out of there. And we got everything out of the Plum Creek Golf Course. And with their help, they were right there helping us. So thank y'all very much.
Coach Davis, I just want to thank you for being here today. Thank you for coming up and giving us your input on what happened that day as well. I know from your character, I know some young men that played for you that can speak highly of you, and I know that your character is a good one of good, and you've got nothing but great intentions for the kids, the families here in Kyle, because you've proven that when you were coaching at Lehman. So just I think that's why if we were to move forward, I think I'd be okay with it, because I know that if you give me your word, you're going to stand by it.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Rizzo.
Any additional feedback? I think that's probably good enough. So thank you for coming and standing before us. Appreciate that very much.
Appreciate it. Thank you all.
All right, next up, CIP, road projects, and consent agenda presentation.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Leon Barba, City Engineer. I'm going to try to move as quickly as we can. Once again, Burleson Street, we're still working with the contractor, trying to wrap up the project. We're really shooting for August. I added this slide so you can see what the pond looks like empty. So we don't have an idea what the percentage complete is, but as we move along, we'll get that number to you.
Those fish, did they go to Lake Kyle? Where did they relocate
They did.
them to?
Unless Mariana knows. I know they moved them to another lake somewhere.
Okay.
Uptown Central Park, the notice to proceed will be issued on July 19th, so that one's getting ready to start. I do apologize. I did not include City Square. I thought about that this morning. I said, oh my gosh, I forgot to include that. But we'll get that on the next briefing to you. Wendy Hill Street and Drainage Project, we're still about 65% complete. Still driving on the south half of Wendy Hill Road. Still working on the north half, and they're finding more things to add to change order number 4, so we're trying to wrap that up. We're still expecting to complete that north half on mid-July of 2021. We'll be switching around July 19th. They still need to do some extra work on the south side, curb and gutter, sidewalk, those kinds of things. Southside wastewater improvements, we're right there close to the Alexander property. We're about 84% complete, and we're trying to wrap up the work in front of TDCJ and the adjacent property. Wastewater treatment plant expansion project, 57% based on the last estimate. The rain has really hurt us on that project. Contractor's still working on Saturdays trying to catch up to his project. We do have the dewatering construction estimate that we're looking at. It's come in as we expected, a little bit higher than what we were expecting, so we're looking at that. We're still trying to maintain our schedule of having this plant ready on March of 2022. You'll notice that the operations building is starting to get a roof. Should be completed by now, I would think. And up on the upper left-hand corner, you can see the Plum Creek crossing. That's where the Bunton Creek project is going to be tying in. This is Bunton Creek Interceptor that I was just talking about. We're about 53% complete. They're boring underneath the creek for the wastewater line and for the reclaimed water line. Well, site number 4, from what we understand, the contractor is supposed to start this week, and hopefully the weather won't delay him. Old Post Road, want to mention that we do have one consent agenda item, number 13. I ordered some special pipe for that project. Typically, we were going to use the concrete pipe for that project, but concrete pipe's pretty heavy. It takes you a while to get that installed. And so I ordered a special new pipe that's called Ultraflow. It's a steel pipe with aluminum coating. It's been approved by Txdot, so that's what we're going to be using on this project to help speed up the project when the county gets ready to install that section of pipe. Elliott Branch Interceptor, we're about 19% complete. We're complete with the bores at the railroad tracks, so they're working their way back towards Sledge on that project. Paramount Subdivision, Opal Lane is open. They will have to go back and do some extra work at the railroad tracks, and so there will be another closure for a short time. Someone did ask me about Roland Lane. This is when they would start on that project. I did talk to the developer today. He's getting with his contractor so they can come up with the schedules. So I should have that to you at the next meeting as to when they plan to start the Roland Lane crossing. Microsurfacing begins this week. We're getting, and again, it's weather permitting. This rain has not really been helping us, but we're trying to get that started this week. So we do have a schedule. It's posted. We've been notifying everybody that we can on the particular project to let them know it's coming. There's two other consent agenda items on there. Item number 12 is a Texas Turnback program. The plan is to take over the operations and maintenance of Hill Street and Old 81. I do want to point out that the resolution that's on there is just the first step in taking over those roads. Txdot still needs to look at those roads, assess them, decide what kind of repairs they're going to do those roads. We're hoping that they'll do all the pavement repairs that need to be done. They'll overlay it, stripe it, and get it in good condition for us to maintain. They also have to go to the Highway Commission to get their acceptance on that. And then this process will take about 2 years, is what I've understand. On consent agenda item number 14, that's on 104 South Burleson. When the geotech report was done, apparently the loads they used were a little bit heavier than what they anticipated. So the new loads they've got are lighter. So based on that, instead of using drill shafts, they're going to try to use what we call spread footing. So we should get a better price or lower price on that. And ready for any questions?
Thank you, Leon. Does anybody have any questions for Leon?
Questions, real quick, Tobias, for the record. Roland Lane, it's right by the track, obviously, correct? So are they looking at possibly now widening that area, the turn? Is that what you're looking at as far as from the service road?
No, council member. It's just a section there. I forget how many feet it is west of the tracks. So it's just a small section that's going to be improved there.
Okay.
So they won't go any further than that.
So
it's just in the subdivision.
Okay, but as far as maybe I could ask this, as far as all that grass that's there, that's either Txdot or is that county that's pulling in the road? Do you know by chance?
Part of it was probably Txdot. Part of it's Txdot.
Okay. All right. Thank you. It's pretty overgrown, so I guess I'll get with them. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Leon. Thank you. All right. Next up is the consent agendas. It's rather long. Does anybody have anything they would like to pull? Councilor Tobias.
Yes, I'd like to pull 8, 9, 10, and 11 for discussion, please.
Okay.
All right.
Councilor Ellison.
Go ahead.
I'd like to pull item 12. And I can make a motion to, I'm sorry, which ones did Councilmember Tobias state?
The ones before, so it'd just be 13 through 18.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve agenda items 13 through 18 as written.
Second.
So moved by Councilor Ellison. Oh, sorry, we need item number 7 as well. Okay, it's been moved by Councilor Ellison, seconded by Councilmember Rizzo. Is there any discussion? Do you want to add 7 to it with an amendment?
Yeah, Mayor, I'd like to amend it to add item number 7.
All right. Second.
Amend my motion to add item number 7.
All right, there we go. It's been motioned and seconded for item number 7 as well as 13 through 18. Is there any discussion on that motion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries 6-0. All right, we'll pick up with agenda item number 8, authorize award and execution of a purchase order of artistic holiday designs, Lamont, Illinois, in an amount not to exceed $95,475 for holiday light displays for Mary Kyle Hartson Square Park. This item is for Mariana's, pulled by Councilmember Tobias. So, Councilmember, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you. Looking at the contract here, 95,000, there's items that are listed as far as the individual decorations that want to be purchased. Number one, is this an additional to the 200,000 that was going to be added from the agenda last time? And is also this an addition to budget request?
Mariana Espinosa, Parks Recreation Director. No, this is the $200,000 that council has previously approved, and this is just the breakdown of how the $200,000 will be used.
Okay, so let's say for number 8, looking at the individual items here, does any of these have a warranty added to them? Let's say, because the one that's for 95,000.
The warranty is the 2-year, just the same as the Christmas tree.
Okay. And the same thing for 9 is the same thing? 9 is part of the...
Yeah, unfortunately, I do not have the warranty answer for item number 9.
Okay. Because it looks like there's the archway and Santa and
Reefs
wreaths
and
all that stuff. Yeah.
pole mounts.
It's just because we know how our weather is. We could have another storm, another windstorm, and if this gets damaged, then, are we just out of luck on these and so forth? That's all.
Definitely follow up with our net marketing, who we previously purchased our other Center Street displays from, and get that clarified for you.
And the same thing for number 11, correct? The
Yes,
holiday
correct.
lighting.
Correct. Number 11 is, actually, there is warranty on number 11 already, and it is for the duration of the holiday display, because number 11 covers the decoration for the Old City Hall, the Krug Building, and for lighting of the largest historic oak tree in the park.
Okay. And again, these were the, I guess the money that was going to come from this was going to come from a different fund, if I'm not mistaken. Okay.
Yeah. I'm not sure if Pervez wants to answer that, but it's the $200,000
Yes.
that council approved.
Yes, sir. The funding is coming from the Park Development Fund as council authorized.
Okay, thank you.
Which is not taxpayer.
Any other questions?
That's
Does anybody
correct.
else have questions on, we just have 8 pulled up, but if those are your basic questions for the whole, you can.
Yes, sir.
You can motion on all the items if you'd like.
Okay, go ahead and motion to approve all this.
So we have a motion by Councilmember Tobias, a second by Councilmember Bradshaw to approve agenda items number 8, 9, 10, and 11. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Second. Oh, no, you already got a second.
Yeah.
No, I'm fine. Sorry.
No, but I appreciate the questions about the warranty.
Yeah,
That
those
is
are good
a
questions.
Very wise question to ask, and I appreciate, Mariana, you following up on that.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 7-0. So next up, agenda item number 12, approve a resolution declaring the City of Kyle's intent to participate in the Txdot Turnback program and assume ownership of Old Highway 81 and Hill Street from Txdot. This is Mr. Barber's item, pulled by Councilor Ellison. Councilor Ellison, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'll try to make this quick. I particularly liked reading section 3 of required repairs by Txdot, resurfacing the roadways and repairing any damaged portions along Highway 81 and Hill Street? The other small section there. So I just wanted to clarify, it does say any repairs that may be more specifically identified, expanded, or narrowed in an interlocal agreement. So obviously we'll get that interlocal agreement through council, through legal counsel, that is. And then the city council will have an opportunity to review that interlocal agreement and make any suggestions or comments on the road repairs and the scope of those repairs. Correct, Scott?
Sure. If that's a question to me, yes. Leon's here, ready to answer also. Yeah, we have met with Txdot on both of these roadways. They plan to rehab, if not rebuild, certain sections of the roads prior to turning those over to the city of Kyle. So we expect a fully rehabilitated road on both 81 and on Hill Street prior to acceptance.
Fully rehabilitated to its original state, so not adding anything like sidewalks or
Yeah,
anything
correct.
like that. Yeah.
But
So it'd just be what is there.
That's correct.
Right.
It would, however, be a good opportunity if we wanted to add that to the scope, to include that. They would ask the city to fund those improvements, but they would probably make them.
Councilmember, I did ask that question, and they quickly responded and said as long as the city would pay for it, they would be happy to make those additional improvements.
I was trying to be PC, Leon.
Yeah. And I imagine, and that's what I expected. But thank you, I appreciate that. I did drive those roads. It doesn't tend to be so, so resurfacing typically just talks about the top coat where there's not the base that's redone. But if it is discovered that there is true base failure on the road, would that be included in this scope as well? Because I guess parsing terms here, resurfacing doesn't necessarily mean the base part of the road, correct, Leon?
They will repair base failures if there are base failures. They usually go down deep and get those done, and then they come back and then overlay those roads. Now, I do want to let council know that we do have a project that we're going to be crossing Hill Street, and we will be doing an open cut on that street with the project that we have there. They had wanted us to bore that, but we had some complications in getting the bore, the easement for the bore. So Txdot has agreed to let us open cut Hill Street, and we'll do a really good repair on that. And by the time they get through their process, which like I said would be about 2 years, our warranty will be up by about then. So if there are any settlements or whatever in that pavement repair, failure or pavement repair, then at least we'll be able to fix that before they come in and do a final repair on it. But we would expect base failure repairs, any pothole repairs, and an overlay. And of course, the striping goes along with that as a final product before we accept it. And we'll get a chance to review that with the district area engineer.
Fantastic. And then final question for Mr. Sellers here. With this Turnback program, have we identified any other roads in the city that we might want to participate in this or are we limited in any kind of way with this program?
Txdot's always looking to give away roads, so I'm sure whatever we requested, they would be happy to give to us. However, we can't break up any of their state systems, so these roadways in particular are ones that have already been broken in the past. There will come a time in the future when we probably go back to them for additional turnback, but right now, these are the two.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, gentlemen. Make a motion to approve agenda item 12 as written.
It's been moved by Councilmember Ellison, seconded by Councilmember Flores-Cale. Is there any further discussion? Councilmember Rizzo.
Yes, Mayor. So Scott, am I led to believe that they would also work on the shoulders as well of these roadways? Because those shoulders coming into town are really bad. I don't know how far their easement goes in front of like the gas station there and the houses there. But
So, yeah, good question. So the extent of 81 in Kyle is just going to be basically from Martinez Loop back to the frontage road. So it's not going to hit anything north of Martinez Loop to Marketplace, for example. We have another project where we're working on a design to have the city go in and make improvements to that area of shoulder.
I guess my last question is, if we do participate in doing sidewalks, am I led to believe that they're going to do the architecture on it? Or would we be on the hook for all of it?
The design work and then the construction, we would have to provide a plan for the sidewalk construction. So basically they would
Just give us permission, that's it?
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Scott. I was hoping they'd do some of it. All right.
Any other discussion on that item? All those in favor say aye. Aye?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 7-0. All right, next up, agenda item number 19. Is that right? 19. We did 13 already, right? All right, I'm at agenda item number 19, consider impossible action to approve an update to the master transportation plan. John Dean, CPNY.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. John Dean, CPNY for the record. So,
There it is. Okay, I got it now. So as you recall, we've been working on updating your transportation master plan for the past few months. We're before you back in middle of June to give you a preliminary update, and since then we've made some refinements and we're ready to come forward for your consideration of the map portion of the document. So as we've been going through your plan, there's some things that became pretty evident to us that I'll point out as we begin the discussion here. One of the first things as we looked at the map is we noticed that there's a significant lack of connectivity through and across Kyle. That's from, east-west, north-south in both directions. The spine, if you will, of the whole system is I-35, and I think we all know how it functions here. It's pretty well taxed in terms of getting traffic across Kyle. Another thing that became pretty apparent as we looked at the plan, and you'll hear me say this theme again, is that there's a significant issue with constrained right-of-way. There's development is happening. It's happening at such a rapid pace. You're getting to a point where businesses and development is encumbering the right-of-way to a point where it's going to be very difficult to expand in the future as growth continues. To that point, as we worked with some of your development staff, the growth in Kyle is unprecedented. Your last plan was done in 2015, so it's been 6 years since then, and the growth that you've had has exceeded those expectations anticipated in that plan, and I think probably exceeded your all's expectations as well. And as a result, the plan is just not keeping up with growth at the moment. So I'll talk about some of the things that we've done so far to this point. We've gone through a process to collect relevant data. We've done a significant amount of coordination with city staff, and we presented to the council back in June. We've looked at the city's needs and came up with some preliminary recommendations, and then we made that presentation to the city council on June 15th for the preliminary map, what we'd come up with. And since then, we're preparing a draft report, which I don't have ready at the moment, but we will have, but I do have some preliminary recommendations to share with you. And then I've actually got the map that we've put together for your consideration. So the next couple of slides, this is the current 2015 transportation plan. And I'll point out a few things on there that I was talking about earlier. The lack of east-west connectivity, or how about northwest to southeast? It's very difficult, for example, to get across town on one road without having to take a variety of roads to get to wherever your destination is. And then, of course, what we hear out back is another big challenge, because that's a significant obstacle to travel throughout the city. So I cued that on perfectly there. It worked out for me. So what that means is the crossings that we do have of the railroad and the crossings that we do have of I-35, which are both limited, are treasures, because you're not going to get a whole lot of them. They're expensive, they're difficult to get. And so as we looked at the plan and tried to figure out where can we capitalize on those crossings and where can we establish that connectivity east and west and north and south, those were some of the driving things that we were looking at, and then trying to identify right-of-way availability or areas where we could get through reasonably. So this is the map that I showed you on, June 1st. I've been saying June 15th. I thought it was June 15th. I guess it was June 1st. This is the initial map that we showed you, and it's pretty busy. It's got a lot of different roads on there and a lot of different colors and stuff. And it showed a lot of your land use is what this map contains on, and all those hashed areas or areas that are currently under plans have permits in to get development permits and whatnot. So you can see it's like nearly all the city has something going on with it. And I think that's something that, as I worked with Scott and Leon, that was a obvious thing. Every time we drew a line somewhere to consider a road there, well, that's planned to be this, and this is planned to be that. It's everywhere. And that's an important point and something I want to mention as I conclude here. But next, I'm going to show you the refinements to this map. We've gotten to a point where we've polished this, we've cleaned it up, we've made some adjustments, we've talked to some folks, we've talked extensively with Scott and Leon to make some refinements here. And the next map reflects those refinements and is what we'd like you to consider this evening. As you look at this, there are a few things that I want you to pay. There's a lot of colors here and a lot of things going on, but there's a few things that I want to point out for you to pay particular attention to. First off is the alignment of RM 150. It's a new alignment that crosses I-35 south of its current alignment. The reason for that is it is one of the few true connections all the way across the city, but it goes down the middle of Center Street. And Center Street is going to always be what it is. It can never be anything more in terms of widening, because we'll have impacts on businesses and whatnot that are just untenable. So that's an important one that I want you to take a look at. We worked pretty extensively on that alignment. Second thing is the Bunton to Kyle Parkway connection. And I don't think I can, I don't have a mouse, I can't draw on this, can I? Look at that. Just touch it? Okay. In that area right there. So the Bunton to Kyle Parkway connection, what that gets us to an existing crossing of I-35 and Kyle Parkway. So we thought that that's a significant connection. You can get across I-35 and across the city with that connection, which is significant. There to the east, there's a development under consideration by D.R. Horton. We've worked with them in terms of the alignment of that road across their property, and it looks like we found something that's reasonable. So I want you to take just pay particular attention to that one. The third one is the connection of BB, which is here, that we found a way to line it up and hit the crossing with Kohler's Crossing. Again, that gets you that connection across the city. And then finally, and this is kind of a convoluted one, down here on the bottom of the page, right there, we found a way to connect NLR 13, which NLR is New Location Roadway. It took me a second to figure that one out. NLR 13 up to a connection with Goforth that meets at a roundabout at the new 150 and the realignment of County Road 158, and then falls on the Goforth alignment. And as you can see, it gets you from the south end of Kyle all the way to the north end of Kyle. So that gives you good, somewhat north-south connectivity on the east side of I-35. So what that establishes is you have somewhat of a backage road across I-30 from I-35 to get you north and south in the city without using I-35. So I'll stop for a second. I'm sure there's a tremendous number of questions about the map here. So,
anybody have any questions so far for John? Councilor Rizzo.
Yeah, John. I'm looking at the map, and I know some of the citizens have come out and have expressed some concerns on it, but a lot of these roadways, these are proposed roadways that we're going to build in the future. That's not something that's going to happen tomorrow. These are things as we're growing that we've pointed out that we needed. We got to be able to preserve those right of ways. So I know there's a lot of citizens that they see this map and they're like, wow, we're going to have this big roadway tomorrow. Some of these, that takes funding, that takes, planning, takes going to bond, because we don't have that money. It doesn't magically appear from the sky, so some of these, even though we're proposing these roadways, they're not going to happen tomorrow, and it could be 20, 30 years before they happen. You just don't know, but they are needed. We are identifying those areas that we're needing for transportation, especially as we start to grow.
Councilmember Rizzo, that's a fantastic point that I'm glad that you brought that up. Some of these roads may be 20, 30, 40 years in the distance, but the preservation for the right-of-way occurs now. As development occurs, if you don't preserve the right-of-way, you forever surrender, well, that's a strong word, but you, in a lot of ways, surrender your ability to ever build the road, because the right-of-way will get so expensive to condemn property, to take structures and things like that. So that's why it's important to do it now. You're absolutely right. That's one of the things. I actually spoke with a gentleman earlier this evening about a road that he's looking at, and I said, well, that's that could be 20, 30 years. And frankly, every time we look at a transportation plan like this, it's difficult, because it's kind of a crystal ball. You're looking into it, and we're trying to look and see, what is this city going to be in 30 years in terms of population, in terms of development, and it's hard. What we're seeing now in the growth that you're experiencing, you're going to have 120, 150, 200,000 people in 20, 30, 40 years. And the road system from the 2015 plan won't convey that type of traffic. And a final point that you kind of mentioned is that the council is going to get many, many bites at the apple on this thing. Just because we have a line on a map does not mean that a developer or a landowner could not come forward with an alternative proposal that you could consider and then make a determination on. They're subject to final engineering. They're subject to you funding any type of roadway. Without your approval of funds for a road, this goes nowhere. So that's all relevant points, and this is far from final in terms of this means that you're gonna have a road over the top of your house. That's not what it means.
I just have a question of, and I understand these can be very far down the road. It could be 10, 20 years, but I know a very loyal resident who's not going anywhere anytime soon, even in 30 years. And so I just want to make sure that we have a plan in place for people whose yard or driveway or any part of their home may be affected. Like, what does that look like? What can I tell them to make them feel like we're not just going to come and demolish your home?
Well, I think I might know the person you're referring to, but just a wild guess. But so on the map here, the blue represents a 6-lane divided road. That's what we're proposing. And then red represents a 4-lane divided road. And then green represents what we call a collector, which is typically a 2 to 3 lane road. So the divided, that's always kind of a sticking point. What does that mean? It can mean a raised median, or it can mean a center turn lane. It can mean a bunch of different things. And the thing that we have purposely not done here, because we want to leave you folks and the city staff some flexibility, is we haven't gone forward and said that red means that it's X number of feet of right of way, and that's what it means all the time, because flexibility is needed. Sometimes when you're going in front of somebody's house, if we take and shrink the right of way down by 10 feet, we can save, taking the front off their house. And I think that that's a legitimate thing that you need to have the power to do. Rather than locking you into it, that, hey, this is 100 feet of right of way and that's what it is forevermore, because that's what engineering judgment and that's what part of the process does, is allows you to flex that thing around, adjust the alignment some. I think I would say to you, to your question, Councilmember, is as it relates to those people that maybe have a red line or a blue line or whatever shown in front of their property, that's what we're thinking right now, that a connection needs to occur along that corridor between those points, wherever it connects between. Now, that doesn't mean that we're necessarily going to be centered up right on the road in front of their house. It might mean that we'll offset and we'll hit the people across the street from them, or it might be that we find an alternative and we don't hit either one of them. It might be just narrow there. There are a variety of answers, and the truth is this is a planning document, and it's just that. It's subject to change. Frankly, you'll see in my next slide some preliminary recommendations. You need to revisit this. It's our recommendation that you revisit this frequently, particularly with the growth rate that you're experiencing. You need to be touching this thing every 5 years, if not sooner. So I don't know that if what I said would avail my concerns if I was the property owner with that line shown in front of my house, but I think what I would say is that at some point in the future, we think a corridor needs to exist wherever it is, and if it's along the, and it might be in front of your property or whatever, that is something to be concerned about and just to pay closer attention. And when you start hearing the city talking about we need to improve that corridor, that's when you need to perk up and be involved in some of the design process so that you can make sure that it impacts your property as least as possible. I hope it answered your question.
Any other questions for John? You have further to go.
Just one more slide.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
go ahead.
So the last thing, I wanted to give you kind of a snapshot of some of the stuff that we're looking at in terms of preliminary recommendations. And again, this will be in the actual written report that we're going to prepare. Again, we just talked about it. We believe that you need to conduct regular plan updates. You're going through such an unprecedented growth rate. It's just all the more important that you just constantly refine this and perfect it, because it's a changing thing and it's a planning document, and that's what it's meant to be done. I would suggest, as we've talked about before, is to keep the plan focused on right-of-way preservation and identifying and preserving those pieces of right-of-way where you can, while you can. There's actually a piece on the corridor for 150 where we relined it over on the County Road 158 route that spoke with Leon about, that the right-of-way is pinched where you'll be very hard-pressed to get 4 lanes through there like you need to. But that's an example of the corridors are getting constrained. And as I talked with Scott and I talked to Leon, I said, well, what about this route? Well, there's this and this and this and this plan there. So it really became a case of threading the needle is what it came to be. And, there's some optimal things, and sometimes there's the best you can do. And in some cases, it'll be that. So try to preserve the right-of-way the best you can while you can. People are going to bring plan amendments forward to you. Developers and whatnot, they'll ask you to come forward and amend the plan for different reasons, and I think those are all legitimate, but it needs to be a high bar. In other words, there needs to be a prevailing need and a prevailing interest of the city in the amendment as opposed to just, I don't want that road. That's, because this serves the entire city, not just any individual property. The next one's a controversial bullet, and so I'm prepared to get rocks thrown at me on that one, is investigate ways for development to pay their proportional share. And so what I mean by that is, as these developments come in here, there's right-of-way dedication that they can do. There are mechanisms that you can utilize to help get them to contribute to some of the improvements. For example, there's some financing mechanisms that y'all are already considering. I think those are important. There are also traffic impact analyses that you can have developments do so that you can make sure that they pay for the improvements that they're creating the need for. And then maybe some of the more controversial things, there are things like traffic impact fees, which are, those are controversial, but they're effective at getting the development to pay its share of development. So I'll leave that one there. The next one is identify opportunities and partner with other agencies to help to defray infrastructure costs. And so you're already starting to do that with Txdot and taking that road or considering taking those roads back from them. You have the opportunity to leverage from them and get them to do improvements for you. And the improvements don't necessarily need to stop on that road because it's a negotiation. There's things that you can do. I've had personal success with where you take and do certain things and get other entities involved. For example, you might be able to partner with City of Buda. You might be able to partner with Hayes County. You might be able to partner with Txdot. You might be able to get funding from Campo. A lot of the improvements we're showing in your plan are tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars over the course of many, many years. Well, it would help if you can get some participation from other agencies to help defray those costs some. Typical section. So a typical section, what that means is that's a cross-sectional look at the laneage. So if you got 4 lanes and it measures how wide those are, right now you have about 15 in your current plan, which is, frankly, it's overwhelming. A lot of the roads look, one's called a collector, one's called an arterial, but they have the same number of lanes, and if you're on one road or the other, you can't tell what's the difference. And speaking with some of Leon's staff, that's been a challenge as it relates to land development, because you'll have the developer will say, well, I want to do this road because it's smaller and less expensive, and it's really arbitrary in terms of which one is the correct one to put in their development. So I think if you simplify those and refine them, I think that the city could find some benefit there. And then finally, and this is one that one of your public speakers at the very beginning mentioned that I'd point out. So as we talk with Scott and Leon, they're saying that they've got developments occurring everywhere and they're all simultaneous. Well, you know what that means. They're all building roads at the same time, which means they're all going to fail at the same time. And that means a tremendous expense coming in the very same window. So what I would suggest is that you should review and refine your pavement sections and make sure that you're getting a pavement section built by some of these developments that performs as you need it to, because the last thing you need is for a roadway that somebody's building that you expect is going to last 10 or 20 years and it lasts 5 years. Well, that just impacted your ability to do all these other projects because you're busy fixing the existing road. And one more bullet that I don't have on here that I think is important. We think as part of these different roadway sections that we're recommending that you need to have sidewalks on all of them. Not just on some of them, I think they need to be on all of them. And then in the plan, we actually included some of the trails from your trails plan that you've been working on. And so in those areas where that trail falls in the right of way of the road, that's where you put a 10-foot sidewalk in as opposed to a 6-foot sidewalk or whatever the case is. So.
Can you repeat that?
Which part?
The sidewalks.
Yes, ma'am. We think sidewalks need to be on all the roads. So I'll stop there. We've got some more recommendations. We haven't put them all together, but I'll stop
Says
there.
the consultant to the people who have to pay for it. So, the context there.
We
agree. We agree with you.
But that's another
we
one.
We have to write the check, but we do agree. Yes.
That's another one you can get developers to pay for as well.
Yeah. Your point about roads all coming sort of to deteriorating at the exact same time it's well taken. That's why we do our microsurfacing. We started that back in 2016, 2015, specifically because we had a bunch of subdivisions that had roads that if we weren't microsurfacing were going to all come to need to be reconstructed at the exact same time. I remember a conversation I had with James Earp about that a long time ago. So agree with you on that. So any more questions for John? We have a person who's registered that wants to come speak specifically on this item, so I'm going to need to get that in at some point. This might be a good time. So I'm going to ask Ms. Diana Woods to come forward. We do ask you to limit your comment to 3 minutes, and that you direct that comment to the mayor and council.
Mayor and Council, my name is Diana Woods. I live at 125 Torrey Drive, Buda, Texas. I've been there 31 years. My property at 125 Torrey Drive is directly contiguous to a investor who purchased this land in December 2020. It is registered to Daisy Lane Investments, registered in Reno, Nevada, and it is in the area of your proposed roadway that you plan to that is on this map as being directly through a floodplain. There's a floodplain directly on the other side of my fence, and your proposed roadway that you have cutting from I-35 to the new roadway proposed by Hays County, all of that land has already been secured, and what is really concerning to me is that one section that cuts into 35 is right next to some of the most people who exist in poverty, people of color with very poor drainage along Suffield Drive. I've walked every block of that area during my census work, and I live contiguous to the floodplain, and I encourage the city engineer, the consultants, and yourself to not only view topographical maps of that area, but to look at maps over the last 10 to 20 years of what has happened during flood events and what has happened in the erosion of that area. It's been significant and profound erosion in the last 10 to 20 years. I myself have built a retaining wall to build back the floodwaters that go through that area. Relationships are built. I think that securing land in 1220, when so many people were still sequestered to their homes, and pushing through this plan on this road is, I ask you to revisit it and not approve it tonight. But I ask that, you know, the astonishing amount of money that I've listened to you, that you're prepared to spend on recreation, with all due respect, you can spend a little bit more time and money looking at your proposed roadway and how it affects people in your transitional settlement community. Many of the maps that you're looking at do not show the homes or the people who live there. And this road, they're already going to widen Hillside Terrace, which is just north of your proposed roadway that you have on this map. And I oppose even planning this road. When you put a toe down on a piece of paper, you may say it's going to be 10 to 20 years or whatever, but if land is being secured right now, those plans are not in 10 to 20 years. I ask for you to preserve the relationship of the people that you have already caught in your net. I'm just a rabbit, and I don't want to be taxed to pay for these projects. Please release me.
Thank you. Does anybody have any more questions or for John or for Scott or comments? I don't know, Scott, if you have anything you want to add to the presentation or anything along those lines.
I'm really so happy to answer questions.
Councilmember Florescale.
I just want to state that I have met with several residents and landowners, and I have spent hours upon hours upon hours with them and looking at the maps, very detailed Google Maps. I have to give a shout out to Kashav and Leon, who spent many a nights trying to figure out a way to create a map so I could share it with our residents and show them exactly where it's going to, these roads are going to run. And in fact, Kashav sent an email at it was either 3 or 3:30 a.m. And it was responded by Leon at 4 a.m. So that tells me we're not taking this lightly. We're really not. And I've spent a lot of time and effort trying to figure out what is the best route. And it's a hard choice sitting up here trying to figure out, are we going to cut into someone's garage or someone's driveway? And I'd like to think that we wouldn't do that as a city. And as long as I sit on this dais, I wouldn't allow that to happen with my consent. But with that said, we have spent hours and hours and hours days trying to figure this out, and it's not easy. And so if there is a better way, or if a resident has an idea, by all means, we welcome it. But again, this is not to create a road tomorrow. This is to obtain easements so we can have the rights eventually to create a way for Kyle to have a little more connectivity.
Councilmember Bradshaw.
I just want to second what Councilmember Flores-Kale said. This is a really difficult decision because we want to honor and respect the landowners and the property owners of Kyle, Texas, and even commercial businesses and things like that. But at the same time, we also can't put our head in the sand and pretend that Kyle isn't growing the way that it is. So I can appreciate being proactive with this master plan and securing as much land that is currently unclaimed as possible so that we aren't forced to interfere any more than we would have to build these roads out in the future.
Councilmember Tobias.
As a longtime resident here in Kyle, I've seen a lot of our families and friends having to go through a lot of these changes, and it's hard. Personally, we're kind of going through this on our end with the family. We see the people knocking on the doors, the developers and all that. So as much as I understand, Councilman Rizzo, we and everybody, that we have to continue moving forward. We can't put our head in the sand. It is a hard pill to swallow because these are people's homes. These are people's land, the land. And that is sacred to them, even though for some of us we see it as a sense of we have growth, we can't turn a blind eye on it. We still, I'm torn on that because again, growing up here, and I keep throwing this out there, I moved here to Kyle when we only had 1,500 people, and seeing where we're at now. So it's very challenging for me to see this growth, even though it's exciting, but still just the idea that somewhere down the line, eventually land will have to be taken and roads will be built over homes and so forth, and that's what's tearing me up on this. Again, I'm not trying to turn a blind eye. I understand that the growth is here, the traffic, I see it, the backlog, but at the same time, that's just my feeling on it.
Yeah, my thoughts are kind of along the lines of what's been said. You know, I think about what scares me is not just all the development and trucks and congestion that we have. It's the fact that half our city or more is undeveloped land that's currently in the process of being developed. And I think about the residents who live downtown or southeast, southwest, all over the city. And whether what's in their long-term best interest. That's the question I always ask. And, if you approve subdivisions and you don't approve roads, if you don't plan for roads, if you don't plan for connectivity and the right sizing of roads, in particular east-west, but you allow for the development to come, you end up like Austin. You end up like a city that's just full to the brim with congestion. The only way that I know to handle that responsibly is to be as proactive and forward-thinking as you possibly can, looking as far into the future as you possibly can, doing your homework and making sure that the road network that you are building can handle the growth that is coming. And so, and if you don't, you can't stop the growth. You can't deny the developments, even if you think you could. Developers have many tools, and according to the state legislature, they have more tools than cities in many respects, and so they will come. And those lovely neighborhoods that where you don't want, regional or arterial roads nearby, will become, parking lots because of the congestion. There has been a lot of councils through the years, I think, who've kind of had the mentality of, well, we're just not going to build the roads, and therefore the developers won't want to come. But ultimately, what will happen is the community will rise up and demand road improvements, which we probably get that more than anything. It's tough because we hear it from both sides, not equally. The sides of we need better roads, more connectivity. That's a much louder microphone in our ears. But just generally speaking, at the end of the day, we're either going to have to build the roads, without a plan, or we're going to build the roads with a plan, or we're not going to build the roads, and the city will suffer long term because of it. There are elements of this. There are particular parcels that just makes me nervous thinking about how are we going to navigate this? We got to make sure this is right by this landowner or that landowner. But it's kind of like, when Kinder Morgan came through with the power of the state, one landowner didn't want it, so they move it to the next landowner, and then now it's their problem. Master transportation plans and major roadways can be seen as either a blessing or a curse, depending on probably your perspective. For myself, I've been resolute from the day I ever took a vote up here, that if there was a situation where I wasn't sure between which way to lean on a decision, I would just always weight it on the side of what I thought was best long term. And I haven't regretted that mentality really ever since. And so that's really kind of where I stand on this. I love the fact that this transportation plan calls for 2 more overpasses in the city of Kyle. And one of them we need desperately, between Yarrington and Center Street. And so, what we need is to get these maps put together so that we can have those plans ready, so that we can start figuring out ways to tie developers to helping us bring those projects forward, and then also to show to Campo and the Biden's infrastructure plan or wherever else we can go to get the monies that we need to make some of these projects a reality. So if we don't take this action, we haven't even gotten to first base. So we certainly don't have the right to make those asks. So that's my piece about it all, at least. Any other discussion, thoughts? Councilor Mirza.
I guess the secret's out. Kyle's a great place to live. As a 4th-generation resident of Kyle, I've seen all the arguments of why we shouldn't grow, and we continue to grow. Most of the people in here moved to Kyle, or moved to our ETJ, or moved to Buda. They're not originals from here, and yet they want to dictate and how we're growing. We couldn't do it when we were the original families. No one can do that. It's just going to happen naturally. You're never going to be able to stop growth. You'll never be able to contain it when people want to move to the area. And I've seen that. I saw it in the 90s. I saw it in early 2000s, and now I'm seeing it now. And I'm really seeing it now. And, it's not something you can stop. It just naturally happens. When people know there's a great area to move to, they're going to move there. I mean, it's hard to see. I remember as a kid playing on Old Stagecoach Road, and not a car would pass by for hours. And now we've got thousands of cars that pass through there. And if we don't continue to address the needs that this city needs, we're going to fall short. And the congestion is going to be crazy. People's drives will not be 5 minutes from the city limits to their house. It'll be 35, 40 minutes from the city limits to their house. We have to address these issues. And I see them. I drive I-35 every day. I work in Austin. And I see it when I get home. I see the congestion here. And we just got to continue to move forward. And as someone, I consider myself a living historian because I've lived through all our growths that we've had here in Kyle. And it's not going to slow down. It's not going to stop. We just got to move forward. Think about Loop 360 in Austin. It's not a loop, is it? People thought that Austin, if you didn't build it, they wouldn't come. I'm sorry they did. That was a mentality back then. I don't want to have that mentality. I know what the future holds. I see what's coming, and I want to be prepared for it. And these roads aren't set in stone, but we're going to do the best we can. John, thank you, you and your team for all the hard work on this. I know it's difficult because we already have a lot of growth, and a lot of those proposed roads that we originally wanted aren't going to happen because of that growth. But we've got to move forward, and we've got to try and secure those right-of-ways. So thank you.
Other comments? Motions?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve, because I'm the item.
Second, it's been motioned by Councilman Rizzo that we approve agenda item number 19, seconded by the mayor. Is there any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 6-1. Next up, agenda item number 20. This was postponed. First reading, this was postponed at our last meeting. An ordinance amending Chapter 53 zoning of the City of Kyle, Texas for the purpose of assigning original zoning and to rezone approximately 11.08 acres of land from agriculture to single-family R1 to single-family R13 located between Scott Street at the 800 block of South Sledge. This item does have a public hearing. Mr. Coons.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. Before I get started, I was just speaking with the representative in the back of the room, Mr. Patton. He's the, in light of the approval of the new map that was just approved, he would appreciate if you would be so kind as to postpone this to the next voting meeting so that they can go back with their team and huddle up a little bit about how that change is going to affect their property. So that would be the staff recommendation right now.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. If you need to meet with leadership, Scott, I think in particular, needs to be able to city manager, meet with the property owner or the applicant as well on that particular site. So if you want to get together and make that happen also. So this item does have a public hearing. So if there are no objections, I'm going to open the public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to come forward and speak on this item? All right, seeing none, I'm going to leave the public hearing open. I make a motion to postpone this item until the next regularly scheduled council meeting.
Second.
It's been moved by the mayor, seconded by Councilmember Tobias. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries 6-0. All right, next up, agenda item number 21, the second reading, an ordinance amending Chapter 53 of the City of Kyle, Texas for the purpose of assigning original zoning to approximately 4.56 acres of land from agriculture to retail services for property located at 145 Lehman Road. This item shows to have a public hearing, but it should not. It's second reading. So why is it listed for a public hearing? Jennifer, do you know? This item 21 is listed for a public hearing, but I don't think it's supposed to have one. Second reading of a zoning ordinance. Okay, well, it's listed, so I'm going to go ahead and have one anyway. Yeah, I'm going to open up the public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to come forward and speak on this item? All right, seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. It's now closed. Mr. Coons.
Nothing new to report, really. This is the same property that we spoke about 2 weeks ago. This is effectively the northwest corner of Lehman Road at East 150, pretty much across the street from PAWS and the city's Public Works Department. And the request is to rezone this to RS. It's currently zoned Ag. Believe the recommendation from staff and the unanimous recommendation from the voters that were present at P&Z was to approve it as presented.
We had a split vote on this. We had a full council here. Probably should wait, get Robert back, make sure we take the full vote. You want to go find him? I don't remember how he voted. It does indeed.
City Council voted 4-3.
I'm aware.
I just don't recall who the 4
exactly
nor the 3 were.
You're ready. I'm ready. Yeah, I live in this area, and I just find it really hard to see houses over here when this area is oftentimes blocked off.
You won't see houses?
It's the hard corner zone. It's a
commercial
RS zoning for a hard corner.
Oh,
Catty
so-
corner to Public Works.
Okay.
There are houses on it now.
Even, yeah.
They'll go away.
But even with that, I still feel like it always floods. And so my worry is this going to contribute to additional, how are we going to make sure the water does not go onto Lake Kyle or like flood the roads even more? When Lehman Road shuts down, that is a huge inconvenience to people. It is not just, oh, well, we'll just go, the long way. It's a huge inconvenience. If I could be reassured that the flooding would not be an issue, I would not be so hesitant. But I know, because I've lived there for almost 10 years, that when it floods all the way to that area. So it just makes it hard for me to try to understand why anybody would put a business or home, etc., in a floodplain.
Maybe when it comes time for the DA, we can discuss some sort of pavement that, sorry.
Turned it on for you.
Yeah,
That was
thank
creepy.
you. Yeah, whoever did that, thanks. That can be discussed at that time to help with the flooding.
Flooding is not supposed to be a function of zoning.
No, I get it, but
So
what really concerns me is the traffic that the flooding causes. So when the traffic backs up and it makes life difficult for everybody, and the development in that area is already a lot. We're gonna have, 300 new homes in the back? Is that 158? There's gonna be even more homes. So anybody that needs to get to, a shortcut to Walmart or to Fuentes, kids that, open and roll to different schools, it just makes that travel time that much longer.
Councilor Ellis.
If I may jump in. Yeah, I think that's a strong observation. I think that's part of the point why we want retail services there, to provide that commercial access that they don't have to go further into the city. We've talked about connectivity. We talked about building spaces that people can not have to rely on so much vehicular traffic or longer trips of vehicular traffic. And I think that's why continuously, when there are opportunities for RS commercial development near residential dwellings, that's why I'm in favor of those, is to cut down on that. Y'all have heard me bring it up before because I've heard it from other residents. Always hear about that Veterans and 2770 intersection with the gas station, the Walgreens, the Sonic. I've heard that from various different people in various different neighborhoods. How do we get something like that over there? Y'all do that for Plum Creek, but y'all won't do it over here. And this is part of how that's done. That area is zoned RS. And so that's how that kind of happens. Of course, all the uses are allowed within that zoning. I think you bring up a strong concern, Councilmember Flores-Kell. And I think that's, we're saying, I know Howard always says, can we? Yes, you can. How can we? And that's what we need to tackle in the next step. I think that's what Councilmember Bradshaw may have been alluding to, is how do we work with that development to minimize those potential flooding issues or that water flow into other areas outside of that property. Currently, it is there are homes on that property, so it's already had an impact, and people are living in that space. If it's not RS, what would be the preference then instead of that? Because this property owner has rights to request zoning and develop their property. That's well within their rights. What would be an alternative besides RS that could be proposed to that property owner to do? And I just don't see a higher and better use than commercial development in that area to match all the residential development that's coming in that area. But certainly if there are any ideas of another zoning category besides that, I'd like to hear it, but that's my train of thought with this one.
I feel like not everything is meant to be our RS or R3. Some things are just meant to be a park or an area that floods heavily, could just be open grass. There are lots of areas in Kyle, especially on the east side, which was farmed. Wait, hold up until today. There's still farming on the east side today. That's not necessarily the roads that you want to go building homes and businesses on. Does it happen? Yes. But my concern is genuine. It's the Lehman Road in of itself is being farmed as we sit here and have this meeting. It's not so far away. It wasn't 10 years ago. It wasn't 30 years ago. It's now. And that same very road is being farmed, and putting concrete over that grass is not going to help with floods.
The concrete won't, but the retention ponds will. So
Those flood.
the great thing about it is that we've got a great staff. Kathy does a great job on looking at our flooding issues up and downstream. So I have a lot of confidence in her. But I've got to agree with Councilmember Ellison that the residents that I know on that side of town want more amenities. They don't want to have to go across the city to do their shopping. And this doesn't add traffic. It actually keeps traffic from other parts of town because now they're able to go in their area. But I understand the flooding concern there that you have because I've seen it flood there forever. But when we build something, we have to find a way to address the runoff water. And that would actually help keep some of the water away from Lehman Road and the flooding over there. As we continue to grow in that area and continue to do more retention ponds, I think that'll help out. Unfortunately, that road was built a little too low than what should have been built. And it's always going to flood whether you have construction upstream or not. It's just one of those things, when we get a huge rain event, it's going to flood because of the way it was built.
Again, it's not really just the flooding, it's the traffic that the flooding creates. And so I know people who were teachers at Lehman that lived literally on the same road as me. And when they didn't have access to Lehman Road, it took 30 minutes to get to work. So it's the traffic that it creates that worries me, not just so much the flooding, it's the effects of, if that makes any sense. And I'm just trying to make life for my residents a little bit easier. And so although, yes, we would love a grocery store, we would love amenities, but let's do it in the right place. It's always been said, you know, is this the best use? Is this the best use? And again, I don't think necessarily a store in that area is the best use. There's much other better places that are well suited for that. Best use, I can't agree with.
So what would you consider the best use for that area? You mentioned parks. Are you saying that the city should buy that land?
No, they.
Because somebody owns it.
I totally understand that, and they have the right to apply. And I sit on this dais as a person who can make a vote, and that my vote would be not to have any kind of retail or homes on that area. Not just, you know, for the flooding, but the effects of the flooding and how that's going to have my residents. I mean, I would love to drive that road with anybody on a day after it rains. I welcome it. Let's see what it looks like. I have for 10 years, and it's just such a huge inconvenience.
All right, I think we've about talked that one through. So, do we have any motions?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve agenda item number
21.
21.
Second? Okay, it's been motioned by Councilmember Bradshaw, seconded by the mayor. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Roll call vote.
Flores Kill. Nay. Mitchell.
Yes.
Rizzo.
Aye.
Ellison.
Aye.
Tobias.
Nay.
Coach.
Aye.
Bradshaw.
Aye.
All right, motion carries 5-2. Next up is agenda item number 22. I'll let Mayor Pro Tem take this one.
Agenda item number 22, an ordinance amending Chapter 53 zoning, City of Kyle for 10.1 acres of land to retail services and 34.83 acres to multifamily. I've been told that this item will be postponed. It does have a public hearing. I will go ahead and open up the public hearing. Anybody wishing to speak, please come forward. Seeing no one, I will keep the public hearing open and make a motion to postpone this item to the first voting meeting in August.
A second.
I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem, a second by Councilmember Ellison. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Next up, please someone get the mayor's attention. Next up, item number 23, an ordinance to the city of Kyle annexing 24.563 acres of land in Hayes County. Howard Kuntz, this is your item. This item does have a public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. Yes, this item is the first reading of 2 for voluntary annexation for approximately 25 acres that's located in the northeast section of the city of Kyle. We commonly refer to this as the Hadsel annexation. It is the property that is the hole in the otherwise donut of incorporated city of Kyle, located just off to the south of the dogleg of Beebe Road, in the general vicinity of the Bluebonnet Manufactured Home Park. So this is the first of 2 readings. You will see this again 2 weeks from tonight on the evening of the 20th, Tuesday the 20th, I believe. So if there's any questions about it, I can make myself available.
Which item? 23?
We are, oh, I got lost. Hold on. Believe her, yes.
Yeah, 23.
Yes.
This item has a public hearing, so are there any objections for opening that up? Seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and open up the public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to come forward and speak on this item? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. It's now closed. Does anybody have any questions or comments?
Howard, do you happen to have a map real quick on that area?
Yes, just 1 second, please.
Councilor Tobias.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Bring up this. Oop, bring up this. Bring up this.
Just curious to see.
And then I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that that pulls up for everyone. Okay, on your screen you should see the staff report that was included in your packet, and this is the first page of that. So this is the location. I trust you can see my cursor? Yeah, so my cursor is highlighting Beebe Road. This here is Dacey Road. And then the remainder of this is the portions of the Bluebonnet Manufactured Home Park with some commercial parcels that serve as pad sites out along the road. And then the subject of tonight's annexation is this red boundary here. The applicant's representative is also on the line if you have any questions for the petitioner.
So we don't have that in our.
That is correct. This is subject to I believe a Chapter 43 non-annexation development agreement, and has been outside of our corporate limits since ever.
Do we know what plans they might have for that area?
I expect that they would probably expand the Bluebonnet Manufactured Home Park that is adjacent to the northeast and the southeast.
Okay. I'm done. Thank you. I yield.
Any other questions? Councilmember Florescale.
I just wanted to give compliments to Howard's team. I was looking through all the backup material. It was done to perfection. So thank you very much. Tell them that I'm impressed.
Will and Debbie are at home watching right now, I'm sure.
Thank you, Will. Thank you, Debbie.
Any other questions? Comments, motions?
I'd like to make a motion to approve agenda item number 23.
It's been moved by Councilmember Florescale, seconded by Councilmember Bradshaw. Is there any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 6-1. Next up, agenda item number 24, first reading, an ordinance of the City of Kyle, Texas, annexing 120.458 acres, more or less, of land located in Hays County, Texas, including the abutting streets, roadways, and rights-of-way into the corporate city limits of the city, at the request of the property owner, et cetera. I didn't quite see the location here. So this item does have a public hearing. Mr. Coons.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, this is what we commonly refer to as the Rastegar property.
Oh, it's Rastegar.
I have brought up my, I have brought up the staff memo again. I'm going to go ahead and share the screen so I can bring up a vicinity map so everybody can see it. So you can see my cursor is moving along. This is Bunton Creek Road. And then further across a couple parcels, this is Heidenreich down here. And then Grist Mill is right down there in the southeast. So this is the 120 acres, give or take. It's a little over 120 acres that is currently taking access off of Bunton Creek and goes all the way down to the Plum Creek. And this is a voluntary annexation, so this is the first read. And yes, there is a public hearing. There'll be a second read at your very next voting meeting.
All right, this item has a public hearing. If there are no objections, I'm going to open that public hearing now. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to come forward and speak on this item? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. It's now closed. Does anybody have any questions or motions?
I just have a question. Last week, or last agenda, this was on the agenda last time too as well, right?
I believe we set the schedule for the annexation process.
Okay.
So the
Just wanna make
schedule
sure.
for the annexation is also in your staff report.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve agenda item 24.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Flores-Kell, seconded by Councilmember Rizzo, that we approve agenda item number 24. Is there any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Both this item and the previous ones are at the request of the property owner, correct, Mr. Coons?
That is correct. These are voluntary annexations.
Just wanted to make that clarifying point. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. Is there any objection to this item being finally passed?
Yes,
No objection.
it has to be twice read. I believe the state process for the voluntary annexation would read that it has to follow the schedule that we published the last time you voted on this. So it'll be on consent at your next voting meeting.
Well, your objection is noted, Howard.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Howard.
Thank you for keeping us honest. I appreciate it.
Next up, agenda item number 25, first reading, an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances of the City of Kyle, Texas, amending Chapter 41, Section 41-146, streetlights, repealing conflicting provisions, et cetera. Mr. Coons.
This is a fun one. This is a text amendment to our development ordinance, which is Chapter 41. This not only solves a problem, but also makes Kyle better in the process. What we've done is chosen to create a standardization for light poles that go in the neighborhoods as new streets are created. The standard drawing is located in your packet. I'm looking for a better, oh, there it is, decorative lamp. I'm sorry, I pulled up the wrong one. I pulled up the street pole, which is a cobra head, and it's not attractive at all. So I'm going to share my screen here in a second and show you some of the ideas. So what we would like to do is be able, for the sake of maintenance and operations after the fact, we would like to be able to standardize which poles are used in the city and still be mindful of our dark sky requirements that are in our code. So taking a picture of this is the top. This is the top of the lamp, and you can see that it is a cutoff fixture because it has a hood above, so the light will shine down. It's a dark sky ordinance. It's not a dark sidewalk ordinance. So we're still going to do the best that we can for making sure that we adequately light pedestrian areas after dark, but we're going to do so without an expectation of wasting that resource. So this is one of the decorative lamp heads, and I'm going to go through and pull up the decorative pole. So you'll see that it's not simply just the top of it, but there's actually the part that more folks would see. So that would be the base of the pole right there on the left, and you can see that. So there's a little bit of visual interest in them, more so than just a austere of a straight pole. So this creates that standard. This allows the Public Works Department to buy these and have them on hand. So if there's ever a need to replace one, they can do so quickly. And they also know that they'll always be able to go back and find the same style in the future because we've standardized the style. Additionally, we can transmit this style to all of our development interests, irrespective of who they are, and they can order the same one, and we can approve them, and they can be installed in uniform in the city. So if you have any questions, I can make myself available.
I have one question. I was thinking about the Burleson Roundabout, the fact that it wasn't lit when, the contractors weren't required to put in any kind of lighting or anything along those lines. This doesn't address that, I assume.
Not yet.
Is that on the horizon to make sure that as we're doing, as CPNY, said, we need to have developers assisting in our infrastructure projects, but we want to make sure that they build the complete streets, including the sidewalks and in particular the lighting. So I'm just wanting to know what we need to do to make sure that if we're approving a developer to do something like Roland Lane or like, Burleson Roundabout or whatever else, we have a lot of roads projects we're considering for, the TERS 3 roads projects, all of that, we can have some confidence that they're going to install the full and complete infrastructure as opposed to doing something on the cheap.
So I'm going to look to Leon a little later. In our agenda, we have a roundabout item to talk about a spec. Does the federal spec include street lighting? Yeah. That's the answer. So we don't have to wait too long. It'll be on tonight's agenda to make sure that all roundabouts have adequate street lighting.
Okay, well, then.
And we can compel them to use
I guess
whatever
my
light we
questions
choose.
will be later. It's just, this is what made me think of it. So Councilman Rizzo.
Yeah, Howard, thank you. I just want to thank the staff for bringing this forward. You know how I love my dark skies. I want all the young people in Kyle, all the people in Kyle, to be able to enjoy the stars in Kyle and look at the same stars I looked at growing up. So anytime we can bring something forward that'll help us address our, our bringing forward the dark sky initiative, I'm really excited about. Light pollution is something that people don't always think about, but it's something that always weighs heavy on me. So I'm glad that our staff is doing this, and thank you for putting in the work on this, Howard. Thank you.
And thank you guys for working as a team. I didn't raise my hand. When I was reading the memo, I was really pleased to see that planning, engineering, and public works all got together, because that's where changes are made, when we can work collaboratively and figure out what it is that we need to apply changes to, and I can't even imagine what that meeting was like. But thank you guys for bringing this forward. I appreciate it.
Any other questions? Motions?
Motion to approve item 25.
It's been motioned by Councilman Rizzo, seconded by Councilman Bradshaw, that we approve agenda item number 25. Is there any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye. 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 All opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next up, agenda item number 26. First reading, an ordinance of the City of Kyle, Texas, authorizing and approving exchanges and conveyances of land with the Alexander Family Trust by and through Mary Jane Alexander as trustee and Mary Jane Alexander as the director of Mary Jane Alexander GP. Mr. Barba, go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Leon Barba, City Engineer. Mayor and Council, I've been working with Mr. Davin Alexander on this particular ordinance for quite some time, and we think we finally nailed down the things that we need to straighten out that intersection at County Road 158 and Old Post Road. In essence, what this trade will allow on this ordinance is that we give them the old roadway, which, by the way, was never dedicated as a right-of-way. It was just by prescriptive rights that we had that roadway, but the intent is to trade that property for the new right-of-way that will be through their property. So, like I said, we've been working on this quite a while. We're finally at the point where we're ready to go ahead and go through that intersection. We need for the county to just go ahead and start on that section as soon as possible so we can go ahead and wrap up that south end of the project. So the timing is good timing on this. I can't say any better than that. So
Thank you, Leon. Does anybody have any questions? Motions?
Motion to approve item number 26.
All right, it's been moved by Councilmember Rizzo, seconded by Councilmember Flores-Cale that we approve agenda item number 26. Is there any further discussion? Councilmember Tobias, do you have something?
So we were able to work with the Alexander family.
Yes,
be
sir.
able to get through, and they're okay with this now.
Yes, sir. They've seen the draft, they've made their comments, and I've answered all their questions and answers, and
great.
gave them good answers.
That's good. Okay. Known that family for many years. Thank you.
They may be online watching us at the time, so.
Yes.
Anything else? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Is there any objection? Item 25 and 26 can be finally passed, and they were unanimously voted on. So any objection to finally passing both these last two items? All right, seeing none, they are finally passed. Next up, agenda item number 27, first reading, an ordinance of the City of Kyle, Texas, amending Article 2 to include a Section 12-23 roundabouts, requiring use of roundabouts in certain intersections, requiring consideration of roundabouts in certain intersections, requiring compliance with national standards in the construction of roundabouts, requiring notice of exclusions, providing severability, et cetera. This item has a public hearing. Mr. Barba.
Mayor and council, this particular ordinance will allow us to adopt the national standards that we've been trying to put together over the last last year. The guidelines that we've adopted are very comprehensive. They have a lot of good information in there, and we expect that all future roundabouts will be designed in accordance with this and whatever future revisions they make to this standard. It also allows us to actually determine which intersections we want to have roundabouts, and if a developer is not in agreement, they have to request a waiver and explain why they don't think they need to provide a roundabout. So it gives us pretty good authority to make the calls on where we need our roundabouts.
Thank you, Leon. I remember where this sort of originated, I think was at a lunch in Carmel, Indiana, when we were having discussions with an engineering company, and we were discussing Burleson and the roundabout and the challenges and just how they seemed like they built it just kind of however they wanted, and what did we need to do to make sure that if we do agree that a roundabout is appropriate for a certain intersection, that we can have that confidence, and this is exactly where he pointed us to. He said to do this exact thing. So that's sort of where it started. Does this require that all intersections will be roundabouts?
It doesn't require all the intersections to be roundabouts, but it gives us the opportunity to look at the subdivisions as they're coming in, and we need to look at them very carefully and make sure that we determine where we think we're going to need a roundabout or where we believe we need a roundabout, and it gives us authority to do that and go through that process.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Leon? Councilor Rizzo.
No, I'm just glad that we're having this discussion because I think actually started way before this. When we start, what happened over on Button Creek Road is really what got this started when we saw that as a city, we need to adopt something that was going to bring roundabouts, if we were going to build roundabouts, that they were going to be built in a way that they were usable and for all
What did I
traffic.
say? Did I say Burleson?
Yeah, no, you just talked about Indiana, so.
Well, no, but it was that exactly what you're saying, that Button Creek roundabout. Yeah.
Button Creek, so yeah, definitely, so, seeing the standard that was built there was subpar, I'm glad that we're able to, put a plan together where any future roundabouts, if there's some implemented in the city, are gonna be built to a certain standard, and, they're not gonna be, built in a way that, prohibits traffic.
Any other questions, comments? Councilmember Tobias.
Okay. Everybody knows how I feel about these. I did some research earlier today about the pros and cons, and I get it. Statistically, most cases it improves traffic up to 70% going through, especially when you have two lanes versus the single lanes and so forth. It's just in our climate here, it's the speed that these people drive through. And number one concerns that I have is the roundabouts that could be looked at are going to be right at the intersection of schools when you have pedestrian walkways. You also have the speed of the traffic on some of these roads that probably go from 50 miles an hour. And then right when you hit this corner where you got to hit those roundabouts, you got to go probably, 15 or 20. I'm also looking at the emergency vehicles that have to go through there, especially during emergencies and so forth. And those are my big concerns that I have when we start looking at roundabouts throughout the city, because I see that might start being a pattern to where we can just start eliminating a lot of these street signs. And so that's concerns that I've had. I've had some constituents ask the same thing, why are we going through this? Why can't we just have the intersections with the crosswalks? Burleson, I understand that, you can be able to go through, I guess, the issues we had with Caseta Ranch threw a lot of people off about it. But I'm just wanting to know if this is going to be the new pattern that the city's going to want to go with all pretty much majority of intersections versus, you said, not all of them.
One of the main reasons for the roundabouts, of course, is safety. And the long-term maintenance for traffic signals, as you know, starts getting expensive. There may be intersections that may just, all they really need are traffic signals. You're going to have to put a traffic signal there. So there may be some intersections that's all we're going to put there. For example, at Spring Branch, we already have the foundations in. At Spring Branch, at Burleson, I'm sorry. So we already have foundations there. So in the future, to put a roundabout there would be very difficult. You'd probably take some property and maybe some houses. But that particular intersection, traffic signal's really the way to go. So it's not going to be every intersection. But we're certainly going to look at them because, again, mainly it's a safety issue. Yes, people have to slow down to go through the roundabout. That's one of the good things about it. And you also don't have people doing the major accidents where they're running into broadsiding somebody. So that's the beauty of a roundabout. It does reduce accidents. It does reduce the time through the intersection. But we're going to be looking at them very carefully. And again, as the mayor asked, we're not going to put them at every intersection. That they do take a lot of right-of-way. That's the big issue with the roundabouts. They take a lot of room to put those in. So you don't want to be taking houses out to put in roundabouts if you can. You don't want to do that. But again, we're going to be looking at every new subdivision that comes in. When we design our new roadways, we're going to be looking at those possibilities of putting the roundabouts in those intersections wherever possible. Speed is a problem. We know 50, 60 miles an hour is too fast for somebody to be trying to be going through a roundabout. We know that. But the criteria that's in that report, that guideline, very good, a lot of good information in there, and we're going to be following that to make sure that we design them properly.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Welcome.
Yeah, I think that's the key, is that they're properly designed, and I think that's where the standard comes into play, because that standard that's been set is pretty tried and tested. So, I was a fan of roundabouts in 2016 when I started. I've seen some roundabouts go in. I watch our roundabouts carefully. I've gone and sat at intersections. I've drone videoed intersections. I've looked at intersections I thought needed roundabouts. I'm obsessed, and I've only probably quadrupled or more my belief that as long as it is the appropriate engineering and at the right intersection, because your point's well taken. There are many intersections where I don't think it would work. I just about give my left arm to see a roundabout, like the Spring Branch and Veterans. That's that stop sign that backs up forever and ever, and people run it. I've drone videoed that intersection, and about 1 out of every 4 vehicles runs that stop sign. Some people just drive through it and never even slow down. I've seen that happen. Mm-hmm. So that's how people get T-boned, and those roundabouts really do, if they're designed the right way, they save lives, and I think that's why I would support it. So, but I don't want to. My opinion's known. So, Councilor Rizzo.
So I've never been a big fan of roundabouts, and everybody knows that. I kind of hate them. But what I hate worse is what the mayor just touched on. And I've seen this become a pattern here in Kyle, is people running the stop signs. I had a gentleman the other day in a blue Ford pickup. If you're out there, I'm calling you out. You ran 5 stop signs on near the downtown area, and I didn't appreciate it because you almost hit me as well.
Yeah.
So
I watched a guy run the Veterans and Spring Branch, 45 miles an hour, never slowed down.
This gentleman ran 5 stop signs on his way to Stagecoach Road, and he never stopped at either one of them. He just ran through them, just blew through them, didn't even slow down. And, incidents like that, what worries me, what if there's a family walking across the street, or myself or one of my loved ones, driving in that area, and this gentleman runs through them. So little by little, people's bad habits are leaning me towards roundabouts. So, yeah, stop the bad habits. Thank you.
Councilmember Flores.
I have to second that I did not like roundabouts either. I didn't. And then when the Burleson came, it was a game changer. And so I am team roundabouts, but not necessarily like.
You say it with this face, like I can't believe I'm saying.
I feel like I'm a traitor to myself and to
Yeah.
the people that I told that I hate these roundabouts. But I only take Burleson now when I go to the HEB area. It keeps me from having to hit up all the stoplights, and
You never get backed up at that intersection,
not-
do you?
I did once.
Once,
Because the train was
exactly.
there and I was trying to get to 35. We're
Right.
not going to talk about this, but if it were a 2-lane, that would be perfect.
That
Um,
that intersection flows.
It does, it flows, I agree. And so, as someone who did not initially support a roundabout and despised it, I have to say, I love it. I love the one in Burleson. And if they're made right, I think they can benefit the city.
Council member, 10 years ago, I did not like roundabouts either. I was the one that got stuck in that one in Waco in the middle. I could never get out.
Oh, on
but-
Sager or whatever, by the school over there. Yeah, that thing's crazy.
Yes. But I did talk to one of the experts in roundabouts about 10 years ago, and he explained the benefits, and we talked about it. And I complained about all the roundabouts that I thought had been designed properly, and that was his response. They were not designed properly.
The ones in Carmel are. They're pretty good.
My concern was the old Chevy Chase movie. We get stuck in a roundabout
Exactly.
for hours, and I think he finally runs out of gas sometime. But I kind of felt that'd probably be us here in Kyle, because when you threw a roundabout here in Kyle, it's like, what is this? How do you navigate this? And I still see people having trouble navigating, but it does slow them down. So definitely, little by little, I guess I'm starting to see the necessity. Will I like them? No, but I know there's a need for them. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, motions?
I'd like to make a motion to approve agenda item 27.
This item has a public hearing, so if you
Oh.
wouldn't mind withdrawing, actually, I'm gonna, is that okay? Sorry, I need to do a public hearing. You okay with that?
We are off our game tonight, guys.
Yeah,
I don't
well.
know what it is. I think we're just excited.
All right, if there are no objections, I'm gonna go ahead and open the public hearing. It's now open. Is there anyone who wishes to come forward and speak on this item? Ms. Krug, I see you back there with making all kinds of faces about roundabouts, if you want to come tell us. All right, if there's no one wishing to come forward, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. Now to entertain motions. Go ahead, sorry.
I'd like to make a motion to approve agenda item number 27.
All right, it's been moved by Councilmember Flores-Kell, seconded by Councilmember Bradshaw. Is there any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Motion
Aye.
Motion carries 6-1. All right, next up, agenda item number 28, discussion and possible action to establish an arts commission. Paul Phelan.
Okay, good evening, Mayor, Council. For the record, I'm Paul Phelan, and tonight I have a presentation for you entitled Art in Public Places, and I hope that, I don't know that I'm the most expert on this topic, but I can tell you I'm an advocate for it, and I've been, through libraries. We've been doing these things for a long time. What I'd like to do, and I know it's getting late, but just very briefly, look at just some of the things going on around us, because I think there's some things going on that are very creative and very cost effective, and I think could help us move forward. So just a brief overview of that, maybe some basic components of these different programs and the things that go in together, and then just maybe a couple of recommendations and see where we might want to go from there. So first of all, I just look at a couple of places around us, and I think Buda is one place to look to. The art movement began there in 2018 when the city facilitated the creation of an artists collective, the Buda Area Artists Collective. In fact, we have one of the leaders of that, Linda Cheeto, is here with us tonight, and she'd be a great resource. and in terms of all of her, not only artistically, but as well, she's got some proposals in terms of creating various programs, and we can certainly utilize that. And she'll be available for questions. So the creation of this artist collective, the collective organizes fundraising events, art exhibits. The city meets with the collective monthly, identifies potentials for collaboration, assists with advertising for the collective's events. Just a nice partnership there. The other major component that they have is a sort of what they call a for-profit, nonprofit contractual agreement with a group of artists that made up the Inspired Minds Art Center. So they took the old city hall and gave them a good deal on the lease in exchange for some in-kind services to the community. So some of those things may be exhibit space, teachers for programs, and just kind of serving as the hub for that art program there. So essentially their organizational structure and governance is just that ongoing dialogue between the art collective, the Inspired Minds Creative Center, and then the Main Street office, I think, generally is the contact. Funding is pretty much just carried out by the city on an ad hoc basis, I think, and I think the council and/or city administration. Now, some of the things they do, you may have heard, the teachers from the center will assist with classes at the library. They provide galleries and public exhibit space. They'll have events like the Butte Plein Air Festival, which was 3 hours. I think they set up along Main Street, had some musicians along there, some folks creating art from the collective. And I think in the end, that was judged and displayed and for sale at the center. I know in my discussions with Linda, one of the things she indicated that she did feel that some things that could really improve their situation would be a comprehensive culture plan, an art district, and a steady funding source, which I think we can kind of look at next. And so that's actually the gallery there at Butte. I should have hit that before. San Marcos. So San Marcos does have an art commission, and it is a board that's been appointed just like any other city board. They do meet monthly with a city liaison. In October, they review grant applications. So essentially, San Marcos funds their cultural events and art projects through grants. So from an organizational standpoint, the city arts department does not host events, but they do support them through grants and looking at that. And that governing body that does that is the Art Commission. Now, they usually, I guess, use 2 buckets of money. They have general funds they do for their things like their summer camps, diversity programs, which is a pretty cool thing they do. And then they use the hotel tax money for events that are going to draw tourism and consumers. In 2020, even though, of course, we had COVID, I think they had just south of $150,000 in hotel tax dollars that supported different programs, about 24 in general funds, and then they did some regular stuff. And then, of course, they do earmark certain things for diversity, for underserved populations. So some examples of that: Summer in the Park concert series, Sacred Springs powwow, and they also manage the city's mural program as a means of graffiti abatement and to provide public art. So lots of cool things going on there. And that's kind of an additional step that I think would be good for us to look at. So we kind of got the art collective, perhaps some partnerships, and now you start looking at a commission or a board that may well help you move that forward. The next thing I'd like to look at is Austin, Texas, and really only 2 things here. And the first thing is the percent for art, and I have heard council speak about that. The city of Austin was the first municipality in Texas to make a commitment to include works of art and construction projects. By ordinance, 2% of their eligible capital improvement projects, and those are public projects, budgets are allocated to commission or purchase art for that site. Austin's public art collection is found at sites such as the airport, convention center, libraries, parks, police stations, recreation centers, and streetscapes, enhancing public spaces for all residents and visitors to the city. Now, my reading of that, and again, I'm not an expert here, my reading of that was that it was a public projects and looking at the state site, and Scott could probably describe this or what the difference is, but was a 1% maximum of projects over 250,000. I don't know, maybe this would grandfather it in, you know how they'll do that sometimes or however, but needless to say, they do 2%. And, you know, you can see, I mean, the proof is here in some of these pictures we got, the Kemplin's Owls that are along a streetscape there, the Open Room Austin, which is kind of the table there, which kind of looks like something out of Alice in Wonderland or something to that effect, so it fits Austin. I think the next thing to look at, too, that we see could be very beneficial in supporting the arts are cultural art districts. And again, Austin has one, the Red River Cultural District. It is a worldwide cultural tourism destination for authentic live music, food, and drink experiences in the heart of downtown Austin. So if you're kind of familiar with that area, it's just on the west side of the highway there, kind of at 6th Street and along those areas. And I think they're really trying to push that. And I think, again, that would be a very good thing for us to look at. Now, some of the things they promote are the Austin City Limits Music Festival after shows, Free Week, Hot Luck Festival, Hot Summer Nights, Levitation, Oblivion Access, which I guess was formerly Austin Terror Fest, etc. So a lot of these events that can happen down there, again, can support those things. South by Southwest that are going on, these cultural events. And so these districts can certainly be helpful to do that. So as we look at the city, as we're doing these things, whether it downtown and other areas we're developing, out east there may be some opportunities to consider doing that. One other thing I would just real briefly talk about, just as a gold standard. You know, I was speaking with Stephen and the gentleman, Spears, and I think he worked on this project. And I know that Scott's really thinks this is great. And of course, since I saw this, it makes me want to go to Houston and spend a day at this place. So, and this is not even the museum district, this is the Midtown district, right? So this is really looks pretty fabulous. But this art district, which would be similar to a cultural district, was developed to ensure that cultural arts and entertainment are inclusive of all forms of expression and that diverse programs and projects are accessible to everyone. It is an urban mixed-use neighborhood that features more than 40 art venues, 90 arts organizations, and an eclectic mix of chef-owned restaurants, coffee shops, and nightlife options. So this would be the example of the gold standard in terms of art districts. And I think that largely the infrastructure for this was funded by a TERS and would certainly be something for folks to think about as we move forward. So what are some benefits of establishing a cultural district? Well, funding. The Texas Commission on the Arts has awarded $12.9 million in grants in its first funding round for fiscal year 2021. 790 grants will go to nonprofits and units of government in 93 Texas cities. So that's just this year, if you can qualify for this. Recognition, successful cities are culturally vibrant cities. Cultural district identity helps to engage citizens, businesses, and other stakeholders in the conversation about how arts and cultural organizations enhance the quality of life and economic success. Of course, promotion is a great destination experience, and then opportunities. Cities that have thriving cultural life are more successful at retaining talent and attracting new companies. And I do think that's true. I can remember in the old days, it seems like some of the larger cities that you would see, Chicago or whatever, and it's not so much true now, it always went out on some of these big contracts, and typically it was because the Texas cities didn't necessarily have the arts like they do now, really. Like if you look at Dallas, for example. So, and we can certainly be there. So some of the different funding sources, of course, the general fund is always there. TERS funding, hotel occupancy tax, percent for art, certainly different parts of those can do different things, obviously. So the TERS for infrastructure, hotel occupancy for events and different things. Percent for art is going to be for the larger, more robust art, commissioned art. Grants, if you get into certain, even if you, for the districts and others as well. And I do think the private-public partnership, you know, as we're thinking about the seniors, I know they're wanting a new facility, I think, and, you know, we got a great, beautiful building, and again, it's certainly something to look at. And then, of course, donations, particularly as things get rolling. So what now? You know, what would be, I think, a good step? I think to create an arts committee to move this thing forward. Now, some of the things that may happen in that case, you know, it could be that a Kyle Art Master Plan, which would be just hiring it out and getting a roadmap to where you want to go and deciding it. Now, in the event that that doesn't happen, of course, this group, I think, looking at it, one thing I have seen is, and I'm not an expert on this, but there is a ton of resources out there. And taken step by step, I think any city could get there on their own as well. So things like a mission statement, a program scope, a timeline, organizational structure. How is the art products going to be created? What kind of art is going to be done? Looking at the financing mechanisms to do that, a governing structure, what kind of board? And I think more along those lines, maybe not just a board like that we appoint, but are you going to have different types of folks on this board that are different stakeholders in different areas? Would it be a unique board in that way? And then, of course, identifying cultural resources, whether it's our downtown area, perhaps some buildings, and whatever we may have. And, of course, our artists and that type of thing, and looking at that. So that would be my recommendation moving forward. I know that we looked at this today, and Mr. Sellers, we looked at it and thought about recommending a Kyle Public Arts Committee, perhaps with about 7 members. You could have someone with a literature background, visual arts, graphic arts, plastic arts, decorative arts, performing arts, and then a council member to kind of herd them all into a direction that you want them to go. That's just a thought, but perhaps something along those lines would I think, kick this off and get it started. And I just got a few additional resources there if y'all want to go through. There's just documents and ordinances and all those things that people will look at later on. Now, we do have, Howard is still here. If anybody, had any questions about on the planning side of that, perhaps, what that may look like. We have Linda here with us, and she has been so kind to stay here. And she just has given us so much time. So thanks to her, if you had any questions. And then I think Mr. Sellers has kind of worked through some of these as well, so probably more than I have. So that's all I got.
All right, thank you, Paul. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Hands. Looking for hands. Councilmember Bradshaw.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you. Are you sure? Hi, I just want to say thank you so much for bringing this forward. This is a very exciting committee or commission to consider, and I think it's something that everybody that I've spoken to would really love to see implemented throughout the community. It's a great way for people to express their creativity. It's a great way to create, attractions for people to come and visit. It's just a great way to beautify the city overall. So I want to say thank you so much for bringing this forward. I am really excited and enthusiastic about it. My only thing would be is that in the initial stages, I would love to see a committee come together and figure out some sort of grant opportunity that would be available to kickstart it, as opposed to funding it, out of the city's budget right off the bat, and just kind of see explore those avenues and what opportunities would be available to us that way. And then as it grows and as we want to create these beautiful sculptures and these murals and things like that, figure out how we could go about funding that from the city's perspective. Those are my thoughts.
Councilmember Ellison.
Yes, thank you. So I was particularly excited about this. This was one of the Items from the visioning retreat that I was hoping that we could bring forward. I know Diana from our Economic Development Department has also previously reached out to Councilmember Tobias and I when we were working with the downtown items about this. So I was really excited that this was being brought forward as well, particularly from you, Paul, and your group. We know the library always does amazing things, a lot of creativity and energy from your department. And so I was excited to see your presentation, and it was very thorough and up to your typical expectations of you and your department. So thank you, sir. I actually, I concur with Councilmember Bradshaw's point about looking at other funding opportunities. You definitely identified those, but I am also going to be in support of the $50,000 that we have earmarked in the proposed city manager's initial budget to kickstart this program. I think that would be a great starting point, but I think we do need to look at other options like grant funding, private-public partnerships, and other avenues that you outlined. I would love to get this presentation emailed to us if we could have that. And I look forward to being as supportive of this initiative as possible. I think we're trying to do a lot of this in the brick and mortar district. We were looking at some different things as well as other parts of development we've done. And I think either creating a district or having a citywide art program would go a long way. And we have a lot of untapped, well, I wouldn't say untapped, but unused skills here right in our own backyard within our city and surrounding areas of artists that are doing amazing things, and sometimes doing amazing things for other areas and jurisdictions and cities. But we would love to have that local artistry displayed here in their own backyard. So thank you again for your presentation, and anything we can do to support this, I would be all for.
Thank you, and certainly tomorrow, that'll be something we can do too, is not only get you a copy of this, but we can start looking for those grant opportunities that you talked about, and we can be pretty thorough in that and see what's out there, so.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you for bringing this forward. When you're looking at the history and the arts, please look at the cultures that were here previously, especially the Hispanic culture, sometimes forgotten. So the contributions they did to the growth of the city would be great. Also, Scott, could this be funded out of the hot tax since it would promote tourism?
Yes.
100%. Yes, it could.
Yes, it can. Yeah. I'm trying to remember how many points. It's like a 7 or a 9-point test, so it has to put heads and beds first and then fit into one of the other categories, which one is arts. So as long as the council as fiduciaries over those hot funds say that it meets those two tests, then yes, it can.
And that way the taxpayers aren't on the hook for it, so definitely, and it promotes the tourism to our city.
Councilmember Floresca.
I don't know what Rizzo means by on the hook for it. As a resident that pays taxes, I will gladly give up some money to have some statutes in this city. Seriously, 50,000, not enough. 100,000, that's a starting point for me. Okay, I walked around Carmel and I was already making big plans for Kyle. Let's do pies. Let's do, I wanted all these statutes. I think it gives you a reason to walk. It gives you a reason to be outside. It gives people a reason to come in Kyle and take pictures of themselves around different areas of the city. I am all for this. And if there is anything I can do to help, you know my email, and I'll work with you. I'll make sure we get this going and make it happen. I appreciate Dex trying to say that 50,000 is enough, but come on, let's be honest. Art is precious, and so as somebody who is an artist, we got to respect that and that price. So I'm down for it. You don't have to convince me. I'm already there.
I would just try to remind that we already have 50,000 initially proposed in this proposed budget. So I wasn't sure when some comments were made earlier if that was realized or not. That's the reason I brought it up. But hey, I like what you're saying. And you certainly did have a lot of unique ideas when we were on our visit. I believe you came up with an idea of having you know how they have the guitars in Austin. There's a different guitar. You go take a picture of it. You came up with the idea of having a different pie design around the city, and you can go around and collect them all, type of thing. But that I agree with you, Councilmember Flores. That is quality of life stuff. That is things that is a draw. It gets you out in the community to stroll and take in things. And yeah, I think this is a great idea, and certainly various different funding sources, including tax-supported funding sources. I think all should be on the table, and we should look at all of them.
Councilmember Tobias.
Yeah, we've had a conversation at the market days, you know, as musicians ourselves. Guitar player myself, and you and your band. What kind of ideas do you think, when it comes to either live music or bringing music to Kyle from the arts point, or would you be looking at, or your vision in that sense?
So I really hadn't thought a lot about my vision other than just I'm excited about all these different components, and I thought of it more in terms of the, you know, this group, you know, thinking about that. But I've always kind of thought that we should try to expand beyond, and I say this, I played in all different kinds of bands, but I tend to do more country than anything else typically. And, you know, it seems like that's what we really have a lot of, and there's nothing wrong with that. You know, I love country music, and we have it at a lot of events, but, you know, I would think if we could get some more things like jazz and different things like that, maybe art in the park with some jazz going on, and just different types of things, and perhaps fund something like that. And I think to Councilman Rizzo's point too, I think sometimes we don't have enough music and different types of music that appeal to different groups as well. And I think we might do better with some of the events. I know when a couple of years ago, we had the Univision event, and you know, we had the mariachis there and different things like that. And, you know, now of course you always get the parents. Of course I knew that, so that's why, you know. But I mean, you have so many people that it's just different though, you know, instead of just having a typical guitar. But if I were talking to the group and the working group and were able to make some recommendations, I would prefer to have some sort of an annual music festival or something. Perhaps it could be at the Performing Arts Center, or something down here in conjunction with just different things, perhaps in conjunction with some other artists and different things like that, because that's one way you can keep your collective together. I don't know that just having meetings monthly would be a way to do it, because people over time get tired of going to meetings, but if you can have something reasonably quarterly or something where they can sell their art and interact, I think that's going to keep your artist group together. But I would say an annual series like that with some different types of performers, and just try it. I mean, we don't really have any classical music. Now, I don't know if there's a whole lot of people in there other than myself that love classical music, but we don't know until we try, or at least within that, perhaps a diverse series or something, you know. And that would be something I would certainly recommend.
Yeah, I can kind of go back to living back in Austin back in the day when you had Austin Aquafest. Every night they would have a different music venture. Whether it was culturally, it was either jazz one night and it was Tejano the next, or it was country, western, rock, or whatever. But I think that with our city and our population, I know there's artists out there, musicians, that could really showcase their music, whether, like you said, whether we have a arts festival and showcase their music such as jazz, classical, or poet reading, or something of that nature. And I think that'd be pretty neat. You know, where we can build on some of those ideas. And it's great that you're bringing this forward. Thank you.
What are your thoughts on how you'd go about soliciting for those board members? Following the boards and commissions policy, just having applications and...
Well, I think though that what we may now, and again, that my perspective on that was we seek out people with specific knowledge in specific areas. So perhaps now this recommendation that we kind of put together today was to get some actual artists. So I don't know how that would occur, but my view would be to find some people, and it may be too that you may want a business owner in there, or even other people like that. And again, I don't know, but it could be other stakeholders in it. But I think that if it was a little different in that you got a working group that may have a little more knowledge of those sorts of things, you know, and again, I don't know how that would work. It may mean that perhaps the council may need to have a small working group to work that out to get to that point. I don't know. But I mean, I think if it were me, I would recommend specializing a little bit, at least for some of the positions on there. You know, have some citizens on there and some advocates. And of course, at the very least, just when they come in. Because one of the discussions I did have with some folks around this was that, you know, it's not always the artist that is the best person to work on the committee, but a patron of the arts. Maybe a person that doesn't necessarily play music, but really has a deep appreciation for it, and may well be the best person to work with on it. So certainly, I think that process, but just in the selection, the criteria, I think, should have something to do with their qualifications.
Yeah. Excuse me. I'll jump in a little bit on that. So we did talk about this today for a while, and we've had thoughts that we've been bantering around ahead of this presentation for a while. Those categories that are listed as kind of a good summary of the different types of art. So we do want to get either a patron or artist in each of those categories so that each facet of art is represented on this committee. You know, the ex officio is clearly welcome also. There's plenty of individuals out there that could be ex officio. Sorry, this mic has so much gain turned up on it, it's hard to talk in it. So what we were hoping is that we could, you know, do an application process and solicit for someone to fill each category, and then we would interview those individuals and bring them back for ratification to the council.
So it sounds like y'all still have just a little bit of work to do to get to the point where you're ready to propose the makeup of the commission?
Well,
how that might look?
the 7 seats there is kind of what we are going to propose. If you want to go back on that slide. Those 7 categories, one of which being a council member. There it is. So 6 broad categories of art with a representative, either patron or artist from each category. And then in the application, the applicant would need to specify which category they're applying to.
Is the thought to have them be required to be Kyle residents?
If we follow our board and commission ordinance, yes. If we do a little bit more like we did economic development and tourism, no.
Well, my thought was that those are a lot of very specific types of, I don't know, you'd have a hard time getting that many unique people if you limited it too much.
I think we'll find it easily, Kyle.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you could. I think that should be our first shot at least.
Okay.
So we'll bring back a slate of candidates if you like us just to take this, advertise it, and start vetting.
Well, is that the desire of the council? Do you want Paul and Scott to come back with some candidates? Do you want us to be a part of it?
Yes, we would like at least a council member on the committee.
Or is it still going to be somewhat of an open call to see if there are people out there that maybe even y'all aren't aware of that
it would be an open
could
call.
fit into one of those 6? Or
yes, sir.
Or y'all?
It's an open call.
Are you wanting us to figure out which council member to participate in that right now?
Yes, please.
What do y'all think?
I recommend Dex if he has free time. If not, I recommend myself.
Why not both?
I second that.
You're talking about both to be a part of the selection process? Or to be on the commission itself, because he only had one slot there picked?
Well, we're not limited to that, right? We can make our own decisions about
We are.
board. But I think just for the selection process, yeah, a couple of us, and then we reconvene. Once we get all the options available to us, maybe we decide to have a different number than what is on that slide. And whether it's for those other positions or the council positions or any of them.
So I recommend that we create a task force for picking the 7, and then 1 or 2 council members to be on the committee.
Sure.
And I believe Councilmember Ellison, Cal, and I guess I'll nominate myself for that committee as well. Just to make sure we get Lois through Kyle on there.
Is that a motion?
We don't need a motion on that, so.
I
that's
think we just recommendation.
Yeah, and then, so the 3 of you plus Paul and Scott put together as a group to figure out and come back with a proposal, sounds good to me.
If that's okay with council.
It's fine by me. Does anybody have thoughts on that? Well, it's kind of exciting, you know? I know we're just kind of working through a long list of things, but it's exciting to think about. I know I mentioned it, you know, the idea of doing this, you know, from my perspective at least a while back, wanting to see something like this happen. You know, I think that came from Carmel as well. Yeah. Anyway, I hope they don't ever watch this meeting. You know, people up in Carmel will think we're like stalking. Yeah, they're totally not. But yeah,
Not all of this came from Carmel.
No, of course not.
There were definitely discussions before you even knew Carmel existed.
All right, fair enough. So, all right, thank you, Paul. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, next up, agenda item number 29, consideration of Juneteenth as a city holiday as it relates to the federal holiday. Councilmember Ellison.
Thank you, Mayor. So I won't have a long presentation about this. I thought about all the different kind of ways I could try and convince you all of adopting Juneteenth into our list of holidays. I'd like for Scott to, I asked him to do this, so I'll go ahead and ask him to do it still. Kind of just recap, because I know the biggest concern typically is the services for residents. And while I think that this is, has a bigger meaning in many ways, obviously still that is a large part of our duty. So I'd like Scott to briefly just kind of talk about what happens on the holidays we already exist as far as staffing, as far as services and resources that residents and the business community have access to whenever we are closed during a holiday.
Thank you. And I'm going to tag team this answer with Sandra. So I'll discuss from a more macro and then have Sandra talk about the organization. So on a city holiday, our staffing for the core services is not interrupted. Sometimes we do pay time and a half. Sometimes it's double time, depending. And sometimes this is regular time. It just really depends on the scheduling. Sandra can get into more specifics. We do close this building down typically on each holiday, so City Hall is not available. Police department, and again, some of those core services are uninterrupted, so that's a 24-hour service. Sandra, you want to jump in?
Yes, hi. For the record, Sandra Duran, Human Resources Director. And I agree with Mr. Sellers that we pretty much go interrupted. One of the questions is billing cycles. They're usually due on the 15th. So this being on the 19th, it wouldn't be affected. And we would continue operations as usual unless we have an event like we do for the 4th of July or Labor Day weekend, where we would have to work those days on a holiday.
From the public standpoint, we have worked hard over the last several years, as this council knows, to provide technology in such a way that the average citizen can still interact with the city, do business with the city, file permits, et cetera. So we try to still go uninterrupted on holidays. We do have call-out service that's available, so certain staff, water, sewer issues, they will be available, and many times they do come out with a crew and check check equipment and respond to calls. So again, from a service delivery standpoint, we try to be as responsive to the public as we possibly can.
I have just a couple questions. I saw the report that Sandra put together that showed how many holidays, including personal floating or similar, does the city offer, and in the combined, it showed looked like about half were between 11 and 12. Right. Where do we fit in that pie? Where would we answer?
For the Central Texas, about 37.5% have 13 holidays. We fall in between. We have 12 holidays and 2 floating holidays.
Well, so this is how many holidays, including personal floating or similar, and then of all the cities, that's just the one I was looking at. So the answer would be 14.
14.
Okay.
14.
So we already have a very, as it relates to Texas cities, we're in the top 20% in terms of total holidays. So there's the question of whether I think we should designate Juneteenth as a holiday and whether we should make it 15, which would put us in the 2.7% of cities. So just for some context, but I was just curious if other cities were, in the area had brought this forward yet or not, or if that was the trend, if most cities are adding an additional holiday / floating day.
Over 50% of cities are considering adding Juneteenth as an additional holiday. So yeah, that moved the whole average up by 1.
Okay. So.
Yes, if you look at the spreadsheet that I sent you, it shows which cities are considering Juneteenth as a holiday.
Okay. Well, I think we got that after this meeting started, so I haven't had a chance to look. But Councilman Rizzo.
Yeah. So Scott, we're thinking about adding Juneteenth. Didn't City Council in the past have this discussion on making Juneteenth a holiday? And I believe so. If they did, I think their compromise was a floating holiday, correct?
The prior conversation where a floating holiday was determined was Good Friday.
Was it? Okay. I thought it was Juneteenth. That's why I was thinking about it. So I was wondering if we were going to have to give that back and then take the Juneteenth. But if it's not for Juneteenth, then I'm good then. All right. Thank you.
And that was
I can read you the list if you want me to for which cities around us are considering Juneteenth.
But, well, I don't know what considering means exactly, but Councilor Forskale.
Me personally, it doesn't require any conversation. I feel like this is a really important date, and for it to become a federal holiday, I need no discussion. It directly affected the state, and I think to not have the day off would have a little bit of injustice there. So if it were up to me, I would say let's just go ahead and approve it. But other people are entitled to their opinions, which I'd like to hear.
Well, the question is not should we approve it as a city holiday. The question is should we go from a total of 14 days off to 15, which puts us in the 3% of Texas cities. We would have a better than 97%. So I'm trying to make sure we have that in context.
Gold standard.
Let me reiterate.
Right, gold standard. There you go. So
let me reiterate the fact that our Parks Department and our Public Works Department and every one of our departments give their all the time. I have no problem giving a Juneteenth off to a department who answers emails at 3:30 in the morning or goes with 4 hours of sleep because they were trying to make our city have a really nice 4th of July. We don't have to be like every other city. We could be like Kyle and set that standard. But maybe not everybody agrees with me, and maybe they do. All I'm saying is our staff deserves it. One extra day. As a taxpayer, you could take it right out of my home taxes if you have to. It makes no difference to me. It's well deserved, and I feel like adding one extra day, making it 15th, is okay in my book.
All right.
First of all, I don't think the debate today is about not giving Juneteenth off because we all know how special that day is and why it's needed. I've seen the discussions on, sometimes us forgetting the importance of certain dates and why we celebrate them. We just look back at what happened this past week. Everybody was all about fireworks, and they forgot why we really celebrate that day. And I didn't forget that's importance. Juneteenth is something I'll never forget what the importance of that day is as well. When people are just barbecuing and forgetting what it is because they got the day off, I'll remember what that day is for, what it symbolizes. But yeah, so trust me, I know the importance of the day. But no, I think this is just wondering, what are we setting the precedents for the city surrounding us? Because now we're giving an extra day, and the other employees around us will probably be thinking like, what's going on? But we've already got 2 floating holidays. We're at 14. Where do we draw the limit? The taxpayers pay for this, and I'm not opposed to giving staff a holiday. I'm just wondering if this is where we want to go. And, I think it's a special holiday. I think we need to recognize it. And I'm leaning towards, giving staff the day. I just want to make sure that we're making the best decisions when we make these decisions of holidays. Because what comes up the next holiday that we do, are we going to, do Cinco de Mayo? Is that going to be the next one? Because we haven't recognized that either, What have we done for the Hispanic people as well? But, it comes to a point where we've got to have a stopping point. Do we take back a holiday and go back to 14, or do we add one? And I think that's what the debate today is, because I'm pretty sure everybody on this dais would love to get the employees Juneteenth off, because it's a special holiday that we need to recognize.
Well, you don't have to convince me if my staff needs an extra day off. I feel like they earn that. They work hard every day, and I'm okay with giving them everyone from our police department to the Parks and Rec. There's not one department that I have a bad word or a bad experience with. So
Nobody's making the opposite
no, but that's
argument.
what I'm saying. Like, what would our hang-up be? Why would we say no?
We would say no because our vacation and holiday policy is disproportionately lenient compared to other cities, and in particular compared to the private sector. So when you put it on we're way over here, and we're talking about pushing it even further. So we give 2 floating holidays. So in my mind, if you reframed it and said, instead of a 12-2 policy, we go to a 13-1 policy to designate Juneteenth as a holiday and give them the day off, but take the floating away, that would be a way to honor the day without going into the percentage that is pretty far, out there. But honestly, if you probably gave staff that option, they would say, "Never mind, I take it back." Because
I don't know. I feel like by doing that, you
generally
almost
speaking.
it looks like we're punishing Juneteenth. Like, oh, we're going to give you Juneteenth,
Well,
and then take this one
look,
away.
I've
That's what I'm just saying.
I've done this for 5 years, and so I've had this conversation in the past. When I've voted against things before, I voted for things before. So
Nope, I get it. I get it.
That's just my thought. So,
But we don't compete with the private companies, right? Because that's our excuse for business, for why we don't pay more is because we can't compete. So if you're going to compare personal holidays off from private companies, we shouldn't be competing. I mean, if you want to, that's fine. But my whole point is you can't say we're going to compete here and then not compete here. If you're going to make it relevant, make it relevant. If you're going to be competitive, be competitive. But if we're going to not pay our employees as much as the private sector, then we can at least incentivize them by giving them 1 or extra days off that they wouldn't get working in the private sector.
Actually, we are in our budget looking at, because the private sector is taking so much of our staff, we're looking at increasing that pay. So we are doing that, and we are actually above the private sector in holidays. So we are not competing with them. We actually give more holidays than the private sector does.
than anyone I know, than any group or organization I know. We have the most robust holiday program. That's the only reason I'm like, I don't immediately jump to add to that total number. So, anyway, additional thoughts?
Mayor,
Councilor
I
Ellis.
make a motion to approve an additional holiday to be the same title as the federal holiday for the United States of America for Juneteenth here in the city of Colorado.
Second.
right, it's been motioned by Councilmember Ellison, seconded by Councilmember Flores Kale, that we approve making Juneteenth a city holiday. Is there any discussion on the motion? Is there no way to parse out so that that the votes can be made as a designated holiday versus adding to the total number of days that we give off? No? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All
Aye.
opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. Next up, agenda item number 30. This item was postponed 6/15/21. And I think it needs to be postponed again. You need us to postpone to a date certain? All right, so it's consider approving site-specific declaration of covenants, restrictions, and easements for the Heroes Memorial Tracts and authorizing the city manager to execute documents related to closing of the parcel. I'll make a motion to postpone this item until the next regularly scheduled council meeting. Moved by the mayor, seconded by Councilmember Tobias. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Did we get all the way through exec? No. Not even close. All right. All right, next up, executive session.
Pursuant to Chapter 551 Texas Government Code, the City Council reserves the right to convene into executive session from time to time as deemed necessary during this meeting. The City Council may convene into executive session pursuant to any lawful exception contained in Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code, including any or all of the following topics. Project Valkyrie, Project Pacific Blue, Project Deep Golden, Project Tropical Green, Project Midnight Blue, Restaurant Incentive Program, Project Wild Blue, and I think sign code. Scott, do we have to do sign code?
What's that?
Sign code?
No.
No? Okay, then never mind, I lied.
But if you just want to read them all, just read them all. Yeah. I did, but just in case you didn't. Just do it all again. Every one of them.
Was no action taken during executive session? There will be no action taken now. Motion to adjourn. We are adjourned.